Hello all of you beautiful people, how are you guys? Yeah, this is the next part of my girlfriend in Marvel who is Spider-Woman. So let's continue with the story. What? You said you arranged gym equipment these days. After school? Gwen asked in surprise at the door. Well, it happened that there was a vacant area in the house, so I bought some for exercise. Are you interested in going home with me? Gwen happily replied, of course, did you know? One of my dreams is to be able to exercise without restriction in my own home. Then your dream is really easy to achieve. My dad didn't let me touch these since I was a kid, he's afraid of me getting hurt or developing a muscle. He said it won't be pretty at all. Gwen looked at AI and asked with a smile, what do you think? I think you're pretty good now. Has any girl ever said you're a sweet talker? I think you're the first. Even Gwen didn't realize that in front of AI, she has been showing a completely different side of her. Not relatively the quiet and good-natured girl that many people think. Rather, she's more lively and active. 13 blocks. The hapless Agent Coulson was still eating cheap hamburgers. If not for a phone call with Nick Fury not long ago, he was a little suspicious whether S.H.I.E.L.D. had fired him. During this time, he has turned the 13 blocks upside down. Q. But still couldn't find any trace of that macaw. Isn't it because some super hacker hacked into SHIELD's system and made a prank? Coulson guessed while sipping a Coke. Otherwise, how could it not be found? As an agent of SHIELD, he has great confidence in his professionalism. As long as the holder of the macaw appeared in front of him, he would definitely recognize it. Otherwise, he doesn't deserve to be called a senior agent of SHIELD. At this time, a taxi stopped not far from Coulson. A handsome and beautiful man and woman who Coulson had seen before stepped down from it. TSK, it's this little couple again. Coulson took a sour bite of the burger. That kind of life was so memorable. AI, who got out of the car, also noticed Coulson on the opposite side. It is more convincing to say that he is more a desolate private detective, rather than an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. AI, what are you looking at? Gwen asked curiously. Nothing, I just accidentally found someone eating hamburgers on the side of the road every day. It's pathetic. Really? I think they are called single bum or something. AI smiled, I think so, let's go up. Coulson, who was across the road, naturally didn't know what the two were discussing. The only thing he thinks about now is to find the clues of the macaw as soon as possible. Then take a good rest for a few days. AI's house. The moment the door was opened, Gwen couldn't wait to walk in. After seeing the previously vacant area, it was now filled with several kinds of fitness equipment. There is also a set of large barbells. It looks very heavy. Of course, AI didn't want to buy this set of large barbells, and he didn't expect to train to the extent that he could lift weights. But it came in handy right now. Gwen's face was filled with joy. My God, you didn't lie to me. What is there to deceive you about this kind of thing? Gwen's reaction made AI very satisfied. No, I mean I thought you just bought a rowing machine or a treadmill. But I didn't expect the facilities to be so complete. It's almost like a private gym. Gwen couldn't wait to try the devices. But it's a pity, the clothes I'm wearing today are not very suitable for sports. It seems that I can only try it next time. Gwen looked at AI and said disappointedly. Today, she is wearing a very capable dress, with a white t-shirt on the upper body and a pair of skinny jeans on the lower body. Not really suitable for sports. I said unhurriedly, "Don't worry, I already prepared it for you." Gwen had a question mark on her face. What does it mean to be ready? Then she saw I walk into another room and took out a piece of washed clothes. It was obviously a tracksuit. "The washing machine has washed it, see if it fits and if you like it." Gwen took it in surprise. The fabric she touched left her with a very comfortable feeling. "My God, have you even prepared this for me?" Gwen said in surprise. "Of course, I don't think you have this thing either, so get ready first." I pointed in the direction of the room toward the toilet. "The toilet is over there, of course, you can change it in the room if you want." Gwen spread out her top and bottom leggings. The top has white and pink stripes. The bottom is a pair of black tights. "Okay, then I'll change into it, you wait for me. I think it should fit well. I trust your vision." With Gwen's appearance, she can see that she likes this sportswear very much. Then Gwen walked towards the room. I's eyes were a little disappointed. "Strange, according to the tradition of this country, shouldn't you give me a kiss at this time?" Sure enough, the movies are all lies. Just as I was waiting for Gwen to get dressed and come out, the phone rang inappropriately. "Hello, Mr. I, there is a package for you. Please go downstairs and sign for it." "No problem." "Damn, you came at the wrong time." I was dissatisfied. But he still walked to his door to get it. If he doesn't pick up the package this time, he won't know when it will be delivered to him next time. "Gwen, I'm going downstairs to get a package. I think the ingredients I ordered have arrived." "Okay, I'll be fine soon." In the room, Gwen had put on the sportswear that I prepared for her, and looked at herself in the full-body mirror. The whole dress, no matter the color or size. All just right. It interprets Gwen's figure in the most perfect proportions and perfectly deduces what it means to be uneven. I knew I's eyesight wasn't bad. Gwen is also very satisfied with the effect of this dress. There's no girl who doesn't like to look beautiful in her own clothes. After tying up her loose hair, Gwen walked out of the room to the fitness area. Should I try this? The first thing Gwen wanted to try was the set of big barbells. As can be seen from the above figures, the weight of this set of barbells is a full 160 pounds. Gwen clapped her hands, trying to see if she could lift it. At the door. I opened the door with 2 boxes in his arms. When he pushed open the door, the scene in front of him almost made his jaw drop. He saw Gwen lift the set of barbells with one hand and kept tossing them up. She is like playing a normal ball. There are barbell clanging noises all over the house. When Gwen saw I return, she smiled and said, "Mr. I believe you were duped by profiteers. Empire State University. Connors Laboratory." Connors looked at the hands in front of him with an unpredictable smile. "Yes, that's right." His right hand has grown out. It was also covered with a transparent viscous liquid, which looked very disgusting and oozing. But at this time, Connors looked at his right hand obsessively. "It's so perfect, it's a gift from the creator." The test video recorder is still recording. "Peter, you see, I have completed the human experiment. Soon, we will be able to popularize this genetic test, and countless disabled patients will recover. And this achievement belongs to you and me." Connors cautiously put the remaining tube of reagents back into the refrigerator and looked at his right hand again. Because of his right hand's amputation, he was relegated from the first line to the second line. And this has also become a knot in his life because he suffered a lot of cold-eyed discrimination because of this broken arm. Now, his hand is back. He wants to slap the faces of those who laughed at him before. What is this? Connors, observing his arm, suddenly frowned and touched his arm gently. It was a dark green bump, hard to the touch. Like scales. Lizard scales. Connor's face changed suddenly. Because around that scale, a few more scales slowly grew. No. It can't be. The scales grew faster and faster, and they covered Connor's entire arm in no time. Even the fingers have become slender. It's like lizard claws. Connors immediately understood what was happening, but he still didn't want to believe it. It is a side effect of the genetic reagent, which causes it to assimilate into the lizard's direction. And this kind of change was something he didn't expect and couldn't stop. He thought the worst outcome was that he would die because of genetic rejection. He never thought that he would become a monster. And he didn't know why a violent emotion rushed to his heart. Connors felt that everything in front of him was so unsightly. Especially the video recorder in the front that's documenting his ugly appearance. Just like when, after his amputation, the media cameras kept taking pictures of him. No. Don't shoot. Connors endured the severe pain in his head, and his mind continued to become manic. His body gradually became more assertive, bumping around in the whole laboratory. He threw away everything on the test bench, and the entire laboratory was chaotic. Even the power supply was destroyed, and the lights in the laboratory became very unstable. After an indescribable growl, Dr. Connors completely turned into a human-shaped lizard. His originally blue pupils also turned into dark yellow vertical pupils. At the last flash of light, Connors disappeared into the laboratory. RAI's house. If he hadn't tried it himself, he would have been able to lift this pair of barbells with ease, only when wearing the Emperor's armor. RAI would also wonder if profiteers really deceived him. But looking at Gwen, playing with a barbell like a wooden stick in front of him, RAI felt slightly unrealistic. Gwen, isn't it heavy? Of course, it's not heavy at all. Gwen laughed. Not only is it not heavy, but it is also a bit fun. Suddenly, RAI thought that when he was at school this morning, the man looked strong, but he couldn't take a basketball from Gwen's hand. No way. RAI immediately put the package in his hand and hurriedly asked, Gwen, have you ever been bitten by a bug since you came back from Osborne Industries? Or, to be exact, being bitten by a spider at Osborne Industries. Gwen was stunned. How do you know? Last night at home. Gwen spoke out about being bitten by an unknown creature last night. After listening to Gwen's description, I gulped. In this universe, is Gwen Spider-Woman? I remembered that there was indeed a parallel universe story in which a super spider did not bite Peter. Instead, Gwen was bitten by a super spider and turned into a white Spider-Woman to punish evil. And in that parallel universe story, Peter turned into a lizard man just like Dr. Connors. Gwen, come with me. I pulled up Gwen and walked to a smooth wall. Remember the feeling of your fingers sticking to a basketball in the morning? After thinking about it for a while, Gwen nodded, yeah. Remember that feeling and try to climb the wall. At this time, Gwen also felt a drum in her heart. Judging from Ai's reaction, that set of barbells was definitely 60 pounds. He didn't need to lie to her. Thinking about the changes from last night to now. The wound that disappeared after being bitten. She obviously didn't do anything, but her body reacted and stopped the ball. The basketball is stuck in her hand and can't be taken away. All kinds of weirdness made Gwen subconsciously follow AI's request. She also felt that was the only way to find out the answer to the question. Gwen put her hands on the wall in a rock climbing pose. The difference is that the walls here are smooth. Under normal circumstances, it is impossible to climb up. But Gwen climbed up easily. It's as easy as walking. Gwen on the wall, looking at the ground where she left, is also perplexed. Oh my god. I. Looking at Gwen attached to the wall, I completely believed it. In this world, Gwen is Spider-Woman. And Peter might be Lizard Man. What happened to me? Gwen jumped off the wall, a little scared, and her eyes were red. It looks like she's about to cry. In the final analysis, although Gwen has a heart for punishing evil, she is still a girl. The situation in front of her was entirely beyond her cognizance. With AI to rely on, Gwen panicked. AI hugged Gwen and let her lean on his shoulder. After all, that crying noise is distressing. It's okay, Gwen. It's okay. Maybe I can explain to you what happened. Do you remember when we visited Osborne Industries? Did you notice a super spider was missing? Gwen nodded. After sitting on the sofa to comfort Gwen for a while, I decided to speak after noticing that her emotion had stabilized. If I'm not mistaken, the super spider should have crawled into your bag. It waited until you got home and reached into your school bag before biting you off guard. Then it jumped out of the bag and was trampled to death by you. I explained carefully, so if I guessed correctly. After that super spider bit you, not only is there nothing wrong. Instead, it gave you some spider abilities. Great power, the ability to predict danger, and biological static that can attract things. I grabbed Gwen's hand. Tilda. Thin and smooth. Feeling the warmth from I's palm, Gwen couldn't help blushing and asked, will I become a spider in the future, and will it be ugly? I was taken aback. Knew it. Women's focus is on these. I don't think there should be any extra changes, so maybe that's a good thing. Then I won't become like a monster. Saying that, Gwen was a little sad again. After all, she is still a beautiful girl. Isn't it like Superman? I looked at Gwen sincerely. Think about it, you have these abilities beyond ordinary people, aren't you superhuman? And didn't you want to be like your father when you were young, to be someone who punishes evil and helps the weak? Maybe this is a chance God gave you. That look moved Gwen a little, and her heartbeat quickened. It is also here that a belief strengthened for the future, Gwen. Being different from people doesn't have you being a monster, it can also be called a superhuman. The difference is where you use your power. Gwen was relieved. It was also at this time that she discovered that she and I were too close. She almost got right into his arms. Gwen sat up immediately. Thank you, I thought to himself, I knew the atmosphere was better, but when will I be so comforting? You're welcome, the new ingredients just arrived. Don't you want to eat the food I made? Sit for a bit, it will be done soon. I picked up 2 packages and walked to the kitchen. After being enlightened by him, Gwen has now completely figured it out, and her mind has begun to liven up. Therefore, the mastery of the spider's ability is much faster than when Peter became Spider-Man. I, who was cooking in the kitchen, soon heard the clanging sound of the barbell being thrown up. She recovered really fast. I don't know if she can spew silk by herself. I was puzzled. It seems that some Spider-Man spew their own silk, while others can only do it through their own devices. Gwen is Spider-Woman. I's heart shuddered when he thought of the white spider suit. It's quite exciting. At the dinner table, Gwen happily ate the food that I cooked by himself, with a look of satisfaction on her face. Delicious, much better than the steak downstairs. At this time, Gwen has returned to her original happiness and liveliness. It seems that the thing that happened when she cried just now didn't happen at all. Gwen, I have something to ask you. Gwen's mouth was full, like a hamster hiding food. Unable to speak, she could only nod her head. Looking at Gwen's appearance, I couldn't help but laugh. This girl is too cute. She had been crying and chirping in the last second, but now she has become so cheerful and free. We'll talk when you're done eating. After he was full, I put the things in the kitchen to wash. Gwen was standing in the doorway of the kitchen and asked, "What question did you want to ask me?" While washing the dishes, I asked, "You have acquired so many spider abilities, can you emit silk?" Silk? Gwen was also stunned. The question is weird, but it makes sense. So she started to keep looking at her body to see where she could spit out silk. Looking at Gwen, who was checking her body in circles, I compared a Spider-Man classic to Gwen. Toby. Gwen, try this. Gwen followed I's example and bent her 2 fingers to the palm of her hand. But nothing happened. At this time, I's dishes were washed, and he walked up to Gwen. It seems that she doesn't have the ability to discharge spider silk. Gwen said with some disgust at this time, that kind of ability sounds weird. When I thought about it, it seemed true. Come on, I'll take you home first. You need a good rest tonight. Okay, I'll go and change my clothes back. If this is the case, leave it here. George's house is not far away. The two got out of the taxi together. I have arrived. Well, let's say goodbye here. Your father should be in a hurry. Then I'll go first. There was a hint of reluctance in Gwen's tone. See you at school tomorrow. See you at school. When I raised his hand to say goodbye, Gwen suddenly leaned in and kissed his face lightly. But quickly blushed and fled the scene. I touched his slightly wet face. Did I get flirted with by her? I returned to his home. Standing on the balcony. At this moment, 1,000 thoughts flashed through his mind. In this universe, Spider-Man is not Peter Parker, so will Tony Stark still make Iron Man? Or can he survive this kidnapping safely? Tony can't die. This is related to whether I can eat and drink well in the future. And it is also more or less related to his frog cub. Speaking of his frog cubs, he doesn't know if he succeeded in his revenge. It's already been a few days since it traveled, and it hasn't sent any photos back. Really worrying. No, I have to see Tony's condition in person. If he dies, I will lose a lot of money. But where to find Tony? I turned on the computer. Do a quick search of where Tony was attacked. Tony was seriously injured after being attacked. He must not have run too far. The whole desert is so big. It must be within this range. Determine the orientation and coordinates. I took out the Emperor's belt from the game. Emperor's armor. Combine. Armor fusion. A flash of the golden list appeared. The Emperor's armor appeared again. After this period of exercise, as well as spiritual practice, the golden light lingering on the Emperor's armor seemed to be even more dazzling. This also means that AI's strength is constantly getting stronger. SHIELD and Tony's people have already found this neighborhood. It seems that I can't go out directly like last time. Transfiguration. After AI's figure was blurred for a while, he once again came to the place where he used the shape-shifting last time. That's when AI appeared. On the SHIELD mothership. The monitor on Agent Hill's hand immediately beeped. "Boss, the macaw has appeared again." Nick Fury immediately took over the monitor from Agent Hill's hand, and there was almost no change in the expression on his dark face. He asked lightly, "Where is the place where it appeared this time?" "Where it disappeared last time," Agent Hill replied. Nick Fury narrowed his eyes and said, "Let Coulson go back and say he has been discovered." As soon as Nick Fury said it, Agent Hill immediately reacted. Picked up a satellite phone and dialed. On the other end of the phone, Coulson, who was sleeping in the car, heard the sound of the satellite phone ringing. He jumped out of the chair violently. With a bang, his head hit the roof of the car. "Oh, shit." Coulson quickly popped up the satellite phone. "Hello, Miss Hill. You have been discovered, the mission is over. Come back." "What?" Coulson looked on in disbelief. Before he could ask any more questions, Hill hung up on him. Looking at the satellite phone in his hand, Coulson was still a little confused. "I, a senior agent, was actually discovered. Impossible, absolutely impossible. But the order to retreat has been received." Coulson had to drive back. Watch him and see where he wants to go. Nick Fury mobilized all the resources in SHIELD to monitor AI with all his strength. He didn't believe that this time, AI could still disappear from under his nose. "Let me see who you are," Nick Fury said solemnly. "In Tony's house. Even if Tony is missing now, Jarvis still has his own AI mind running. Also, at the moment when AI appeared, Jarvis has already turned on monitoring mode." On a huge transparent light curtain, AI was standing in midair. It seems to be identifying the general direction. There should be nothing wrong with this side. AI first looked in the direction of the Middle East and then knew that SHIELD and Jarvis must be staring at him now. Zen meditation seal. AI pressed his hands on the belt. Ripple waves appeared around him with him as the center, and all the places that were radiated fell into a state of absolute stillness. Within a radius of 50 kilometers, everything except AI was forcibly stopped, including light. Light cannot continue to propagate within this range, which means that monitoring by optical means will be meaningless to AI. It will be automatically released in 30 seconds. AI moved quickly and flew towards the direction where Tony was kidnapped. In SHIELD, the image observed by Nick Fury and others at this time was that the macaw stayed in place. It was not moving at all. "What's the matter? What is he doing?" AI knew that Nick Fury was extremely smart, yet the agency couldn't figure out what happened at this time. Not to mention Hill by his side. The two stared at the screen with big eyes and small eyes. In order to track AI's figure, all the monitors that could be called were monitoring him at this time. But without exception, the same prohibited images were captured. 30 seconds later, the meditation seal ended. Mother Fasterisco, what the hell happened? Nick Fury's classic mantra suddenly burst out in foul language. Because in the monitoring at this time, the macaw seemed to evaporate from the world. It disappeared without a trace in an instant. This kind of ability makes him unable to understand and even more unacceptable. He used almost all the surveillance methods available to SHIELD. But he was gone anyway. He has never been so frustrated since becoming the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Hill. Find it for me. He must have wanted to go somewhere and didn't want to be discovered by us. Use the resources available in the world to find it for me. Because he was so angry, he even smashed Hill's monitor with one punch. Yes. Hill responded immediately and went to do what was ordered. And this time, in another corner of New York, a bald woman in a yellow hoodie stood on the rooftop and looked in a certain direction with deep eyes. She whispered in her mouth, "This is the power of time." After half an hour, on a piece of yellow sand, I stood there, looking at the debris on the ground and the explosion marks everywhere. It should be right here. The next thing to do is to find out where Tony is being held by the 10 rings. I stood on the spot with outstretched arms. The spiritual power that he's been cultivating during this period is released through the Emperor's armor. Like a huge net, it spread out around I as the center. 10 kilometers. 20 kilometers. 25 kilometers. 30 kilometers. I found you. I was overjoyed. Once he has the correct bearing and distance, he can use displacement. Suddenly, I came to the top of a canyon eroded by yellow sand. And below this, is the cave Tony was being held captive. Zen meditation seal. The meditation seal was released again, and the members of the 10 Rings gang patrolling below all stayed where they were. Inside the cave, Tony, who was writing the Makar program, also stopped. Yinsen, by his side, was holding a screwdriver in his hand, screwing something. I walked slowly to Tony and saw the blueprints stacked on top of the computer. With a satisfied nod, he said, "Fortunately, Tony is still the same Tony. If something happens to you, I'll really lose money. This is Mark 1 on this blueprint. But seems a little different." I picked up the design drawing and looked at it, and suddenly the corner of his mouth twitched. The head of this Mark 1 is not the classic cylindrical shape. Rather like a helmet with exaggerated glasses. And the shape of these glasses, is too familiar. Isn't it the shape on his Emperor's armor? So I inspired Tony to create the Mark 1. I looked strange. Although he has nothing to do with Tony and the creation of Mark 1. But it seems that the development direction of Mark's armor has become a bit strange. Never mind, let's go. After I left, the effect of the meditation seal was removed. Tony, who was typing the code, found that his design drawings seemed to be moved. "Yinsen, have you touched my drawings?" "No, I've been screwing you." TL/N, okay. Tony spread his hands, maybe he was too tired to remember. When the last power supply code was finished typing, Tony raised his mouth and looked at the pile of parts on the ground that was only about to be assembled. "Yinsen, are you ready? Tomorrow morning, we'll go out." Gwen's house. After taking a shower, Gwen walked out of the bathroom in pink pajamas. Looking at her mother who was still knitting, Gwen asked, "Mom, is Dad still not back?" Gwen's mother shook her head. "He's been so busy all the time." As soon as the voice fell, there was a sound of the door opening. Then, a displeased George pushed the door in. His stern face softened a bit when he saw Gwen at home. Of course, if he knew that Gwen had just returned, he probably wouldn't have a good face. Gwen also noticed the strangeness of George, so she asked, Dad, is there something wrong with Stark Industries? At Stark Industries, Obadiah has calmed it down a lot. This time it's mainly Daredevil. Daredevil? Gwen doesn't understand. Did Daredevil provoke you too? George walked into the room and said, there was a report of a gun robbery in the bureau tonight. By the time we got to the scene, the armed robbers had already been cleaned up by Daredevil. Gwen asked back, isn't that a good thing? Good thing. George frowned, he is a criminal who abuses lynching, damn bastard. Hearing this, Gwen also had a temper. Is it bad for him to help people? Of course, it's bad. If everyone abused lynching as he did and then got encouragement, they would just take this kind of violence against violence. George's words made Gwen speechless. As the commissioner of the New York Police Department, he is most opposed to this violent heroism of personal behavior. And Daredevil was just such a person in his eyes. So he didn't like Daredevil. Anyway, if I had the ability like Daredevil, I would choose to help others. After that, Gwen went straight upstairs, not wanting to continue arguing with George. Looking at his daughter, who had left, George could only helplessly say nothing. As an old father, how could he not know what Gwen was really thinking? He also knew about Gwen secretly practicing martial arts in private. He just pretended he didn't know. As an old fritter who has been in New York for decades to be the director, he knows too well that this brave personal heroism will not end well in the end. Or hurt the people around you. Or hurt yourself. Sorry, I'm late tonight. Is there anything to eat? George asked his wife. Sit down and wait a moment. Gwen's room. Gwen sat at the table, browsing some information about Daredevil on the computer web page. Among them are some photos of Daredevil that many citizens secretly took. In the photo, Daredevil is holding a double red button which is quite majestic. Under his feet are some bad guys who have done bad things and been punished. Gwen seemed to feel something stirring in her heart every time she read this news. She opened an old notebook on the desk. Gwen turned a few pages and looked at one of the stick figures. The content in the painting is a set of clothes. The lines are crooked, and you can tell it is a child's work at a glance. The signature next to it is Gwen. Looking at this immature painting, the corners of Gwen's mouth raised slightly. Because this dress is a police uniform she designed for herself. Her dream at that time was when she grows up, she will wear it to catch bad guys with her father, George. But now. Suddenly, Gwen's eyes lit up. No, now I can, I already have great power. Gwen clenched her fists. With powerful superpowers in her hands, she is no longer an ordinary person. Taking a look at Daredevil on the computer screen. She took another look at the graffiti police uniform on her hands. Maybe. No, I will do it. Gwen got excited and started drawing in the notebook. This time, she really wants to design a police uniform that only belongs to her. I don't know if he will. In her mind, AI's figure flashed. Gwen decided to tell AI her thoughts tomorrow, and go to him with the outfit she designed. With the decision made, Gwen continued to design her own clothes. 2 hours later. In terms of color. Gwen remembered the tracksuit that AI prepared for her today, and instantly had a color scheme in mind. AI's house. With the coordinates of the two places, he directly moved back to his house and removed the Emperor's armor. AI came to the edge of the balcony, thinking in his heart, I don't know when Gwen will be able to design her spider suit. He was looking forward to Gwen wearing the white spider suit. on the SHIELD mothership. After Agent Hill exhausted all resources to mobilize and search, finally a report was handed to Nick Fury. After leaving our field of vision, this was the last place the golden macaw appeared. Where? Nick Fury didn't read a word of the report in front of him. Agent Hill replied immediately, the Middle East desert area. Desert area. Nick Fury looked puzzled. Can you find out what he did over there? Hill shook her head. He didn't do anything, just spread his arms and disappeared in place. Nick Fury frowned after listening to Hill's report. He had never encountered something that he didn't understand so well. What is the purpose of that golden macaw? Will it be a threat to them? Can it join the Avengers? The more Nick Fury thought about it, the more clueless he became, until Agent Hill next to him continued to speak, but we found another thing. Tell me. The place where the golden macaw went is exactly where Tony Stark was attacked and disappeared by KB not long ago. Tony Stark. Is this golden macaw also related to the Stark family? Nick Fury had his hands on the fence, his fingers constantly tapping on the railing above. What did Coulson say? Agent Hill shook her head. Nothing was found. It would be easier if Natasha was here. After Nick Fury pondered for a while, he said, contact Kingpin, tell him I'll go over now. Let him do us a favor. If he is unwilling to help, all his criminal evidence will be sent to everyone who wants to arrest him as soon as possible. Yes. Agent Hill got to work immediately. After a while, Hill came over. Director, Kingpin agreed. Nick Fury threw a long black trench coat and left the control room. Hill, follow me. New York City. Inside a splendid hall. Many people in black suits were drinking and having fun. On a large chair in the middle of the hall, there sat a huge giant wearing a white suit and a red rose pinned to his chest. It's no exaggeration to say he's a giant. Because the girls who served him, compared to his size, were like underaged children lying on top of an adult man. And this person is also the king of New York's underground world. Wilson Grant Fisk. People on the road are used to calling him Kingpin. Kingpin, who was sitting on the stage, sipped his wine and asked casually, I heard that we have a few business deals that have been destroyed by Daredevil recently. A henchman stood up immediately, yes, boss. But those are small businesses. Kingpin nodded, well, with some small business. It feels quite worth it in holding Daredevil. However, if you're a little more aggressive. And if you could kill Daredevil, I think it would be more worth it. Kingpin glanced at him, and the little guy immediately fell to the ground, not even daring to breathe. At this moment, a figure draped in a black cloak walked in slowly. It seems that I disturbed you from educating your men. Seeing the person coming, Kingpin's serious face immediately changed to a big and cheerful smile. Oh, my. Director Nick Fury, if I heard that you're coming, I would have arranged these drinks and dishes right away. Then I'll wait for you. I don't know what wind got you to be blown up here. Nick Fury doesn't care about Kingpin's flattery. Instead, after looking around a few times, he plainly said, let these people go down first, there are too many people here. Kingpin glanced around, and everyone immediately retreated wisely. In front of Nick Fury, Kingpin put away his identity as the underworld boss and became very respectful. Because he knew that no matter how big he played in New York City or even in the whole country, he was just playing a family in front of the head of the braised egg with his eyes and hands. To put it bluntly, as long as he's a little bit willing, he can switch from gold to bars at any time when he takes action. After all, people like him have deadly handles everywhere. Although he's afraid of being on his bad side, Kingpin still has the confidence in killing this little braised egg alone. But it's not necessary. He came in to look for business, why should he choose to lose both? As long as each has what they need. It's not a problem to lose a smile. When everyone was finished, Nick Fury said straight to the point, I want you to find me someone in the 13th block. Kingpin laughed, Mr. Fury, do you think too highly of me? Someone that your S.H.I.E.L.D. can't even find. How could I possibly find him? Not necessarily. Instead of talking nonsense with Kingpin, Nick Fury put a video in front of him. Although he didn't pay attention to the underworld, he knew they were among the best at finding people. After all, their little thugs are like rats walking the streets all over New York. They could know a lot of news in just a few words. The last place to disappear is in the 13th block. Kingpin watched the video with surprise in his eyes. He never thought that such a thing would exist in this world. Is this a macaque controlled by a human or a robot? Find him, but don't expose him. And you'd better approach him without provoking him. Nick Fury made his demands. This made Kingpin feel very distraught. You want to find him, but you can't expose him, and you can't provoke him in the end. Are you really looking for anyone? Are you sure you're not looking for your ancestors? Although he has some misgivings in his heart, Kingpin didn't dare to say it and could only compliment him. It's very difficult, but I'll try my best. As soon as there is news, I will notify you immediately. After ordering these, Nick Fury continued to ask, does Tony Stark's disappearance have anything to do with you? Mr. Fury, Tony Stark and I have never met each other. Besides, he disappeared in the Middle East, which is full of lunatics. I also have 1/3 of his acre. TL/N, stocks. Nick Fury smiled, turned around and left with Agent Hill behind him. After Nick Fury left, Kingpin restored his original strong aura and took out a walkie-talkie in his pocket. The walkie-talkie that was originally the size of a palm was now like a mini toy in Kingpin's hands. Search in the 13th block and collect all the big and small things that happened in that block recently. Put it on my desk tomorrow morning. Back in the S.H.I.E.L.D.'s car. Nick Fury drove the car, looked at Agent Hill beside him, and said, isn't it weird? Why would I ask Kingpin for help? Hill nodded. Coulson has been discovered, which shows that that person has a certain degree of understanding of our SHIELD. So the people from SHIELD can't appear again so as not to cause unnecessary misunderstandings by the people behind the macaque. If that happened, I wouldn't be able to pull him into my plan. Hill nodded understandingly. This makes Kingpin and his good the bad guys while Nick Fury is the good guys. Sure enough, it's a black-hearted egg. On the way back to SHIELD, it was already late at night, and the surrounding roads became extremely dark. Suddenly, a huge dark figure flashed across the road ahead. Nick Fury hurriedly braked, and the car came to a halt with a tail flick. Did you see what that was just now? Nick Fury asked Hill beside him. Agent Hill also seemed to be frightened and nodded dumbly. It seems to be a lizard. Nick Fury's face suddenly darkened. It's just that the face is too dark to be seen. Because he could see it very clearly just now, it was a huge green lizard that jumped directly in front of them. Let's get out of here first. Now, aside from this car, they probably don't have any weapons on them. Although this car is also specially modified. But all functions are prepared for attack prevention rather than to prevent. monster. Just as Nick Fury was about to drive away, suddenly there was a loud noise from the roof. Bang! The entire roof sank in an instant. At the same time, a sharp claw directly clawed on the front windshield. Squeeze squeak. The special bulletproof glass has been scratched under the claws. Sit tight. We have to get rid of it. Nick Fury slams the gas pedal. On a dark street, a black car riddled with holes galloped away in one direction. Behind the car, a sewer outlet was opened, and a long, thick lizard tail slowly entered it. Inside the car, Hill held the handle on the door with lingering fears. The windshield in front of the car was shattered. Nick Fury had glass scratches on his face. Chief, what is that? I don't know either, but one thing I'm sure of. It should have treated the two of us as edible steak just now. What happened tonight made Nick Fury more certain. That is to speed up the formation of the Avengers. And the Golden Macaw with the people behind him have been included in the list of the Avengers' plan. The Middle East. Yinsen, you'll hide behind me later. About 5 meters away from me, I'll take you out. With the help of Yinsen, Tony has put on the Mark I. And it's amid a perfect start. At this time, if AI were here, he would be surprised at the development of the plot. Because it is based on the original scenes of MCU. Yinsen will fight the Ten Rings in order to buy time for the Mark I to start. He ended up being shot by the Ten Rings gang. But this time, Tony created the Macaw ahead of time under the influence of the Emperor's armor. So Yinsen doesn't have to delay any longer. At the cave entrance, Tony raised his heavy arm and slammed the big iron gate. With a loud bang, Tony took Yinsen out of the cave and launched a massacre against the members of the Ten Rings gang. No mercy is needed. Because the hands of these people have been contaminated with the lives of innocent civilians. This time, seeing the all-evil they did to be quite substantial, Tony started without a shred of hesitation. Flames, machine guns, smashing. Countless firepower slanted out. Yinsen, drive. I'll chase you behind. Quick. Hope to see you alive. Yinsen drove away in one direction under the cover of Tony. Okay, let's all enjoy the joy of the explosion. Tony put out the full fire and burned all Stark Industries weapons. The entire canyon was instantly filled with explosions. Among the flames of the explosion, the soles of Mark I's feet spewed fire into the sky. But soon the injector on the bottom of the foot ran out of fuel. Tony screamed and fell from the sky. He fell straight into the desert, and the Mark I fell to pieces. At this time, a car drove up, and Yinsen showed a big white toothy smile. Looks like I saved you again, Tony. I think so. I'll treat you to a drink when we go back. Yinsen jumped off and pulled Tony up from the desert. Tony, who was sitting in the car, found him recycling the pile of scrap metal and asked, "Hey, Yinsen. What are you doing? Aren't you going to take this thing back?" Yinsen asked back. "No, I'll make you a better one when I go back. Hurry up and drive, I'm dying of heat." The two people who escaped death just drove into the desert with big smiles. After walking for a while, Tony noticed a helicopter passing overhead. "That's America's military plane." Tony immediately waved his hands. "I'm here." Inside the State University library, Gwen and I sat face to face. "Do you want to be a vigilante against violence and evil?" After listening to Gwen's thoughts, I asked again to confirm. Gwen nodded and showed off a notebook. "Yes, I also designed a costume for myself." It was her whole night's work. I was also curious if the spider costume designed by Gwen was different from what he had imagined, so he reached out to take the book. But Gwen avoided it. If you agree with me being a vigilante, I'll let you look at it. In that way, there is actually a little coquettish feeling in her heart. Does I agree? Of course, I agreed that if Gwen didn't become Spider-Man, then the spider outfit would be meaningless. Is this for himself? No, it's for the common people of New York City in dire straits. There is a line in the movie. New York needs Spider-Man. Of course, I respect your choice. Hearing I's agreement, Gwen was instantly overjoyed and took the initiative to open the design that she had drawn overnight. I took it and looked. Cool. It must look good when you wear it. If you are a fashion designer, you will definitely win the international award. It was the sportswear you bought that inspired me. That's really not wrong. The Spider-Man suit in the book is the suit of Little White Spider in I's memory. With a white hood at the top, the lower body is pure black derived from the position of the chest, and the rest of the position is red and pink as the main color. Just as I was looking at the Spider-Man suit, Gwen handed out another small glass bottle. There is a little milky liquid on top. What is this? Gwen explained, that's the spider silk found in my bag that was left by the super spider. It's very tough, but after a while it becomes liquid. I collected some, I don't know if it will be of any use. I nodded and said, if we can analyze its composition, we can recreate it. Through some equipment, you can achieve the effect of spinning web. That way when you catch criminals, you can tie them up. Gwen's eyes lit up after hearing this. You are a genius. Let's go to Dr. Connor's laboratory and borrow some experimental stuff from him. Gwen couldn't wait to pack up the things on the table, grabbed and walked towards Connor's laboratory. Seeing that anxious look, I couldn't help but laugh. Holding Gwen's backhand, let's go. Gwen's face suddenly turned red, and she said softly, well, you can walk slower. I understood the hint and slowed down. Outside Connor's lab, Peter hurried to the door, stopped, and gasped as he walked into the laboratory. He said embarrassedly, I'm sorry, Doctor. I haven't been so relaxed for a long time. I'm a little late. Are you still there, Dr. Connors? What happened here? Peter, who kept shouting Connors's name but didn't get a response, was dumbfounded after entering the laboratory. In the laboratory in front of him, everything is a mess. It's not the same thing as being clean last night before I left. During the time when he was away. What the hell is going on in the lab? Peter's first reaction was the genetic reagent. Peter opened the refrigerator and found the small box containing the genetic reagents safe and sound. He was immediately relieved. But when he opened the box, he found that there should have been 2 genetic reagents left, but now there's only 1 left. A bad premonition suddenly rose in Peter's heart. Could it be that Doctor, No. The genetic test was successful. The doctor will not risk experimenting by himself. Although he had already imagined the worst in his heart, Peter still didn't want to believe it. After closing the box of genetic reagents, Peter wanted to continue searching for clues in the laboratory. Soon, Peter found the VCR lying on the ground. After picking it up and fiddling with it, he found that the video recorder was not broken, but was out of power. If the doctor did the experiment alone last night, it would definitely be recorded. Peter knew Connor's habits well. But at this time, there is no power supply in the laboratory. The wiring has been completely destroyed. Peter took the video recorder and the last tube of genetic reagents and walked straight out of the laboratory. "Doctor, I'm sure you'll be fine." At school, Peter couldn't find a friend who could help him, so he had to go home to take a look at what was recorded in this recorder at the end. Just after Peter left the lab, I took Gwen's hand and walked to the laboratory's door. The door to the laboratory was closed, and I felt that something was wrong inside. Gwen was the same, wondering, strange, aren't the doctor and Peter in there today? Don't they usually have one person guarding the laboratory? When Gwen said this, I immediately realized what was going on. "I think something happened." Gwen forcefully pushed the door open. Hearing I's words, Gwen didn't suspect him, and immediately pulled the lock on the door open. The two walked into the laboratory together. The scene in the lab made Gwen a little unbelievable. "My God, what's going on here?" Only I knew. Connors has become Dr. Lizard. As to whether Peter is still a normal person, he didn't know. Gwen immediately took out her cell phone and dialed Peter's number. On the other end of the phone, Peter got a call from Gwen on the way home. Immediately confused, he thought for a few moments, before finally picking up. "Hello, Gwen." Hearing Peter answering her call, Gwen breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank goodness, Peter, you're fine." As one of her few good friends, Gwen was very worried about Peter's safety. "We're right here in the lab, what's going on here?" Peter said truthfully, "I don't know either, but I have a hunch. Something happened to the doctor. I was about to go home to watch the video of his final experiment. And look what happened." "Okay, then I and I are going to your house to find you now." After being silent for a while, Peter responded, Gwen hung up the phone and said to "Let's go to Peter's house to see what happened." I nodded in agreement. If Peter was Spider-Man, I would naturally choose to do more than do less. Because he didn't like Peter's murderous heart of the Virgin. But now Gwen is Spider-Man, and Dr. Lizard will be Gwen's mortal enemy. In addition, the relationship between the two has already surpassed ordinary friendship and is developing in another direction. I naturally had no idea about letting Gwen take risks alone. The two set off towards Peter's house. At the same time, inside the New York airport, a private jet marked with the Stark Industries logo landed at the airport. Tony, who put on a suit, got off the plane with the help of Colonel Rhodes. And Yinsen walked behind him. The two returned to New York together. As soon as he got off the plane, little Pepper, who patiently waited for his arrival, came up with red eyes. "And there's the medical staff, with beds ready." Tony frowned. "Who are you kidding? Do you guys want something? Move away." Then he went straight to little Pepper and joked, "Your eyes are red, are you sad for your missing boss?" Little Pepper replied, "I'm happy, I don't have to find another job again. Now that I'm back, get ready for work." The two got into the car that Happy drove together. Tony and Pepper sat in the back row, and Yinsen took the co-pilot comfortably. Happy, who had never seen Yinsen, immediately asked, "Hey, who are you? Did you ride the wrong car?" "No, he's my friend Yinsen." With Stark's answer, Yinsen smiled lightly and buckled his seat belt. "Where are we going now, sir?" Happy maintained his professionalism as a driver. Pepper was about to say go to the hospital, but Tony interrupted immediately, "I've been locked up for so long, and now I just want to do two things. One is to eat a hamburger. 2. Before Tony could say anything, little Pepper immediately said, "Yes, you are so horny." This sentence made Yinsen in the front row couldn't help but laugh. Tony rolled his eyes at him. Then he said, "Hold a press conference." Little Pepper suddenly felt that Tony in front of her seemed to be a little different. But for a while, it's impossible to tell where the difference is. "Come on, Happy. Let's go get some hamburgers. Also, let me know that I'm going to hold a press conference." "Okay, sir." Soon, Tony returned safely, and the news of the upcoming press conference spread throughout New York. New York City Police Department. George, sitting in an office chair, listened to his subordinates report. Very dissatisfied, he said, "T, we have to maintain the law and order again. These wicked rich people." On the SHIELD mothership. Nick Fury, who had a few stitches on his face, was so dark that he couldn't show his anger. "You said Tony Stark is back?" Agent Hill nodded, "Yes, head. And there is a press conference." "Where did the macaw go yesterday? He's back today." Could it be that the macaw really has something to do with him? Nick Fury thought for a while and said, "Let Coulson go and see how Tony escaped." Peter's door. Gwen knocked on the door. A middle-aged woman opened the door. Gwen immediately greeted kindly, "Aunt May." May and Ben of this world were younger. "Hey, Gwen. Long time no see." The two embraced each other like good friends who had not seen each other for many years. "Who is this?" Aunt May looked at I. "This is I, my classmate. We've come to find Peter together. Is Peter at home?" "Hello, Aunt May." I and Aunt May shook hands. "What a handsome boy." "Thank you for the compliment." "Go up." Peter shut himself in the room as soon as he came back. Gwen brought I to the door of Peter's room and knocked on it. "Please come in." Gwen pushed the door in. "You came just in time, I was just about to turn on the video recorder." Gwen stepped forward and patted Peter on the shoulder. "Don't worry Peter, Dr. Connors will be fine." "Thanks, Gwen." After Peter fiddled with the VCR, a picture began to appear on the screen. "Peter, I'm sorry. I lied to you. Obviously." Connors in the video seems to be saying his final goodbyes. Then the genetic reagent was injected into his body. Peter looked at his clenched hand. Only he knows that the injection does not have enough genetic data to support in vivo experimental data. That behavior is to treat yourself as a guinea pig. After he injected the genetic reagent. God. The scene in the video made Gwen unbelievable. She saw that the severed limb of Dr. Connors' right hand actually grew again, and it didn't take long for a brand new arm to emerge. Although it is covered with slime. But that's really an arm. Humans. Have they really achieved regeneration of amputated limbs? In the video, Connors happily tried to use his newly generated hand by stretching and grabbing some things. Disregarding everything, he stroked his right hand with his other one. The smile on his face was as happy as a child's. But then, Connors' newly grown arm suddenly turned green. Then half his body. Connors rammed around like crazy, and the VCR was knocked to the ground. The next scene is all the sound of smashing things. At the end of the video, there emerged a big green foot, which disappeared without a trace after the lights dimmed. Peter. Gwen looked at the silent Peter, intending to comfort a few words. But I grabbed Gwen's hand and shook his head gently. Gwen immediately understood what I meant, and Peter couldn't listen to any comfort now. After a while of silence, Peter said, "Gwen, I Can you promise me one thing? I said, you say it. Don't call the police, and don't tell the story that Dr. Connors turned into a monster. I know that although Dr. Connors doesn't usually say it, he is very concerned about his image. He often leaves late, because that's the only way not many people in the school will notice his arm. When he came out to see me off early that morning, I should have noticed something was wrong with him. Peter fell into self-blame. He has been bullied since he was a child, and only when he met Connors later did he feel like a good mentor and friend. After getting along in the past few years, his relationship with Connors has already surpassed that of teachers and students. More like each other's family. Gwen nodded. Peter, I promise you. I also said, okay, I promise you. Thank you, I want to be alone. I'll go back first. I pulled Gwen, who was still trying to comfort Peter, and the two gently exited Peter's room. Then he saw Aunt May walking up with cookies. Are you guys leaving now? I baked some cookies for you. Peter is really neglectful. He doesn't understand a bit of hospitality. Aunt May muttered as she was about to enter Peter's room. Gwen hurriedly stopped Aunt May and said, Aunt May, Peter is working on an experimental project for the competition these days. We're tired, so we'll take a break. We'll find him next time. Let's go downstairs for your cookies. I on the side also picked up the biscuits from Aunt May's plate. It tastes good, Aunt May. Let's go downstairs to eat. After half an hour, I and Gwen left Peter's house. Along the way, Gwen's mood also became a bit lost and unmotivated. I want to help Peter and Dr. Connors. Have you thought about it? That would be very dangerous. Don't be afraid, I have superpowers now. I believe I can find Dr. Connors, and then find a way to make him come back. Gwen patted her little arm as if there was a big muscle somewhere. Of course, even if she has no muscles now, her strength is far beyond that of ordinary humans. Okay, since you want to use your superpowers to help others, then let's go. I held Gwen's hand and stopped a taxi on the side of the road. Gwen asked in confusion, where are we going? You want to use your superpowers to help others, at least make your outfit first. What we have to do now, of course, is to buy materials for making the clothes. Looking at the serious Gwen nodded solemnly. In the case of the spider web, we can only sneak into other laboratories in the school tonight to make it. With I's arrangement, Gwen felt like she didn't have to think about other things. This feeling. Very nice. In the department store, I was accompanying Gwen to pick up some things. Seeing him being fascinated by the news on the TV hanging on the wall, Gwen followed I's eyes. Tony Stark. Didn't he disappear for a long time? I think he should have been rescued. I knew that this is the time when Tony was going to announce the next big news. On the TV, Tony stood in front of a group of reporters with clearly visible scars on his face. His bandaged right hand was still wearing an arm sling. I completely woke up and realized that what I have to do in this world is to contribute more, instead of just making things blow up. Tony took a deep breath, looked at all the reporters, and said solemnly, and that's why I have decided to shut down Stark Industries' arms manufacturing department. Effective immediately. And just like a domino effect, all the reporters off the field exclaimed one after another. Pepper, who has always known Tony the best, was the most surprised. Yinsen, who was beside Happy, looked at Stark with a relieved smile. Even though Agent Coulson doesn't understand the pros and cons of this proclamation, he was just here to complete the task of the stewed egg boss. Obadiah, who had been following Tony's side, rushed to the stage instantly and covered Tony's mouth. He keeps explaining that Tony was joking. But no one believed it. As soon as Tony spoke, Stark Industries' stock price plummeted in an instant. I, in front of the TV, knew that it was time to take action. I's house. Gwen took what she bought and went to another room to start making her own spider suit. On the other hand, I was on the computer, watching the news on the internet and see if there was any news about Connors, while also keeping an eye on Stark Industries stock. Sure enough, since Tony announced the cessation of weapons production, the stock of Stark Industries ushered in a cliff-like decline. Before this announcement, Stark Industries has made a fortune selling all kinds of high-tech weapons from the very beginning. Today, Tony suddenly announced that he would stop the production of weapons. In many people's eyes, this situation is no less than an outright declaration of bankruptcy. It'll be a miracle if the stock doesn't fall. It seems that we will soon be able to see the drama of Ironmonger and Iron Man. I smiled slightly. This is a big show, and he doesn't want to miss it. Just as I was constantly watching the situation on the internet, the long-lost reminder sounded in his mind again. Frog Cub is back, Tilda. Frog Cub brought you a travel specialty, come and have a look. The Frog Cub brought you a souvenir, Tilda. I was overjoyed, this stupid boy had finally come back. Hope he didn't get hurt in the fight with Wesker. Now, I's money is going to be used to buy stocks. If the Frog Cub was injured a little at this time, it would be a big loss. As soon as the game interface was opened, I first clicked off all the prompts. Even travel specialties and souvenirs will be viewed later. Instead, he looked at the Frog Cub. Not just intact. There is a smiley face in the small dialogue bubbles. It can be seen that after returning to the world of Resident Evil this time, the little guy should have been a pain in the ass for Alice. System, the fictional worlds where the Frog Cub goes, must he complete the main storyline before he can go to other worlds? I asked curiously. After all, the Frog Cub has gone to the Resident Evil world twice. Every time it travels, the world will be random, not fixed. Only when the frog has a deep obsession with a world will it teleport to that world again. I nodded understandingly. To put it simply, this one in his family is still a very vengeful frog. And it's still the kind of revenge that has to be written immediately. I proudly smiled. Yes, it is like this, father, me. After confirming that the Frog Cub was fine, I bought him a luxurious 50-clover bento in the store. Then bought a lucky amulet worth 150 clovers. This amulet was a cost-effective item that I found while browsing the store in his spare time. Well worth it though. But all of a sudden, the balance of the clover came to double digits again. I'll have to make money as soon as possible. Tony, you have to work harder. I thought to himself. Clicking on the travel specialties and souvenirs. This is. When I saw the travel specialty, his eyes suddenly lit up, although it was a small icon. But it's not hard to tell it's a USB stick. Isn't that the travel specialty related to Modisk in the world of Resident Evil? The souvenir is another book. I clicked on the two icons, and the information immediately appeared in front of him. Sure enough, it's not in vain bleeding for this stupid little child. Artificial Intelligence Red Queen, a travel specialty from the world of Resident Evil. The Modisk contains all the codes of the Red Queen's AI intelligent neurons, which can be used when plugged into the computer. Note: this version of the Red Queen is absolutely loyal to the host and will not be invaded. Umbrella Company Technology Book, From Resident Evil: A Souvenir of the World. This book chronicles the science and technology in all fields of Umbrella Corporation. Note: it can be handed over to the Red Queen to learn, or the host can learn it by himself. Because the amount of information is too large and complicated, it will take 3 months or even longer for the host to learn. It will take half a month for the Red Queen to study. After seeing the 2 things that Frog Cub brought back, AI immediately knew that his $5 million were not in vain. Not only had he not spent in vain, but he even made a profit. Artificial intelligence Red Queen aside, the value of this second souvenir is even immeasurable by money. The Umbrella Company is not only the initiator of the Resident Evil disaster, but it is also the most powerful technological company in that world. Its scientific research results cover almost all fields. In the Resident Evil movie alone, there are military industry, cloning, dormancy, memory implantation, laser weapons and even more. Countless. AI is confident that with the help of Red Queen, he can build a company no less than Stark Industries and Osborne Industries. It's just a matter of time. AI turned his palm over, and a USB flash drive with the Red Queen appeared in his palm. Looking at the dark red USB flash drive in his hand, AI smiled and inserted it into the computer. Then the content on the computer screen instantly turns into a string of codes. After scrolling for a while, the code seemed to come alive and converged together. Suddenly, it turned into a little loli in a red skirt. "Hello, Master, I'm the Red Queen." The Red Queen elegantly pulled up her skirt and bowed respectfully to AI. "I'll leave my house to you to manage in the future." AI had long wanted to try Tony's feeling of being fully serviced by Jarvis. However, the sudden remarks of the Red Queen extinguished AI's illusion. "Master, apart from this computer in your room, there are only 2 mobile phones that can be taken over by me through the internet. So I can't manage the house for you." AI: "Okay, let's talk about it later. You should absorb this knowledge first." AI took out another book, and when it approached the USB flash drive, it became a stream of information that poured into it. After a while, the Red Queen on the screen suddenly manifested a book and she began reading it carefully. It looks like she's still learning. After doing everything, AI opened the game again. He found that the Frog Cub was no longer outside, so he clicked into the room to have a look. Only then did he realize that the Frog Cub was sitting at the desk at this time, with a small notebook in front of the table, and he was waving with a pen in his hand. Luo AI suddenly understood. Frog Cub is writing a diary. Seemingly paying attention to AI's peeking at him, the Frog Cub suddenly closed the notebook. With a resentful look on his face, he turned his head to look at AI. AI's eyes froze. "Don't worry, I won't peek at you." With AI's assurance, the Frog Cub happily continued to write his diary. And what's on it? AI couldn't see it either. He simply quit the game and went to the treadmill to sweat like rain. At this time, in the Connors Laboratory of State University, a huge human-shaped lizard appeared in front of the refrigerator, and the thug opened the door. After violently searching, Lizardman Connors made a low voice, "Where did my genetic reagent go?" "By the sea, at Tony's house." Little Pepper stayed alone on the first floor, watching various financial reports on the TV. Almost every financial pundit is advising people to get rid of Stark Industries stock. Stark Industries is completely over. Although Little Pepper didn't know the reason for Tony's actions, she unconditionally believed in him. At this moment, Tony's voice sounded from a tablet placed in front of Little Pepper. "Hey, Potts, how big are your hands?" "What?" "Tony." Little Pepper was a little confused. Why did he suddenly ask such a question at this time? "I mean, are your hands small enough?" "Okay, forget it. Can you come down? I need your help." "Okay, I'll be right there." Pepper quickly walked towards Tony's lab basement. When she came to the basement, she saw Tony lying on the lab bed. Yinsen on one side was wearing gloves and holding a blue glowing object in his hand, looking helpless. Seeing Pepper coming down, Tony immediately said, "Show me your hand." Little Pepper waved her hand. Tony and Yinsen nodded to each other. "Then it seems that only you can help me replace this thing." Tony pointed to his chest. "The upper reactor has been dismantled, and a wire is attached to the inside." "Is this what saved your life?" Little Pepper asked in a surprised tone. Yinsen on the side joked, "If you don't hurry up, his life will really be gone." Tony immediately glanced at Yinsen. "Hey, you seem to want me to die. Then what shall I do now?" Little Pepper interrupted the two. Yinsen handed Pepper the new arc reactor in his hand. When he was smashed down from the sky, the wire inside got stuck. "My hands are too big to get in, so we need you to take out the electromagnet inside." "You want me to put my hand in and dig something in Tony's body?" Little Pepper had an unbelievable look on her face. But under the affirmative nods of Tony and Yinsen, she endured the visual and psychological discomfort and helped Tony in replacing the new reactor. After the operation, she returned the old reactor in her hand to Tony. Tony said, "I like everything, but I don't like nostalgia. Help me deal with it." Looking at the old reactor in her hand again, Little Pepper asked, "Is there anything else, Mr. Stark?" "No, Miss Potts." Then Little Pepper took the reactor and left while thinking about something. Yinsen, who had been silent, waited until Little Pepper went upstairs before saying, "Is she your secretary?" "Yes." Tony thought for a while, "That's not all. I can see that the relationship between the two of you is very different." Yinsen laughed. "Let's talk less sarcastically, we're going to start work. You eat and live here, don't you think you can work without help? Then I'll kick you out." Tony blocked Yinsen's mouth as the latter was about to continue gossiping, and brought Yinsen to his office for introduction. After sitting down, he said, "Jarvis, are you there?" "Always at your service, sir." "Is this your AI butler?" "That's right." "Jarvis, this is Yinsen. It's thanks to him that I'm back alive this time." "Hello, Mr. Yinsen." "Hello, Jarvis." Yinsen was once again shocked by Tony's genius, such a powerful artificial intelligence that few people in the world can produce. "Okay, the introduction of new friends is over, and now we start work. I'm going to build a brand new project, and the project name is temporarily named Mark. As my private project, it will not be uploaded to Stark Industries." "No problem, sir." After Jarvis replied, he continued, "Sir, I think you should take a look at this." The next moment, the image of the Emperor's armor recorded by Jarvis was played. When Yinsen saw the Emperor's armor, like everyone, he almost had the same reaction, "My God, what is this?" Tony shook his head and said, "I don't know. But we can escape that ghostly place. Just because I was inspired by him." The video time is very short, and the picture is still static. Until the Emperor armor disappeared from the picture. Tony knew that this time he had lost track of him again. It doesn't matter, I'll be like him soon. Jarvis, launch my project. On one side of the workbench, the holographic image of Mark I was projected immediately. Yinsen, I said when I escaped from the desert, I want to give you one. Now let's get started. Mark II. In Ai's house. Ai, who was meditating to cultivate spiritual power, suddenly thought of something. Hearing the door open in the room, he immediately opened his eyes and looked in the door's direction. At this time, Gwen, wearing the newly made Spider-Man suit, was standing at the door. The curves of her body are more firm and stylish under the wrapping of the battle clothes. How is my craft, Mr. Ai? Gwen asked proudly. This is her most satisfying work so far. When she came out just now, she swore that if Ai didn't know how to appreciate it, she would beat him up. Yes, I must beat him. Beat him until he says she looks good. Impossible, Miss Stacy. Gwen smiled and continued, the clothes are ready, it's time to start making spider fluid. Come and see what this is. Ai stood up and brought Gwen to the computer. A bracer-shaped piece of equipment was modeled by the Red Queen according to Ai's memory. Then, with the help of the Red Queen, it became what it is now. What's this? My new gear. Gwen wouldn't be able to see what it was for a while. I named it Web Launcher. You just need to fill this place with spider fluid. Press the sensor in the palm of your hand with a gesture, and you can spray spider webs. Under Ai's explanation, Gwen's face became more and more excited. Finally, unable to hold back her excitement, she hooked her hands around Ai's neck and directly kissed his cheek. Ai, you are a genius. I was just thinking about how to launch the spider webs, but you've got everything ready for me. Ai smiled, I have already sent the model to the best production company. I believe we can get it tomorrow. So now, let's make spider fluid. Night. Peter came to the door of the State University with a cooler containing the genetic medicine. Doctor, since you disappeared in the laboratory, then I will come back to the laboratory to find you. The State University at night seemed very deserted. In order to not cause other trouble, Peter avoided the doorman and sneaked into the school. Then, with the help of the faint light and moonlight, he avoided the surveillance and walked towards Connor's laboratory. What he didn't know was that, for the convenience of sneaking in, all the surveillance at the State University had now been hacked by AI. In the current monitoring room, although the monitoring time is flowing, but the picture remained static. It can be said that even if Peter danced awkwardly in front of the surveillance camera, no one would notice. Unless someone walks by. In a physics laboratory, Gwen gently opened the door and recklessly turned on the lights. I didn't know you had such superb hacking skills until I met you. I smiled, neither denying nor admitting anything. Instead, he said, but I may not be able to help you in terms of experiments. Maybe, I can only help you with the lookout. Gwen took out the spider fluid left before and said, don't worry, I can handle it myself. How long will it take? With this spider fluid specimen, as long as I analyze the material components in it, I can reproduce it perfectly. Yes, about 2 hours. Okay, I will wait for you. Gwen put on the goggles and white coat and started the development of spider fluid. I looked at Gwen, who was studying seriously. He faintly smiled and walked to the door of the laboratory to give Gwen a hand. Although the surveillance cameras are blacked out, he still did this to avoid people patrolling at night to see. Even though the security guards at the State University were notoriously lazy, they still sailed carefully. With AI at the door, Gwen threw herself into her research. Much faster than expected. An hour later, Gwen looked at the jar of liquid that had been prepared. Unable to hide a smile on her face. I'm done. Hearing Gwen's voice, I walked in immediately. Gwen held a brown bottle in her hand with a label she had just written on it. Spider liquid. Then let's go. Because it was the first time, she didn't control the amount. In addition to the large bottle, there are several more small bottles. Gwen put them all into her backpack and followed I away. Just when the two were about to leave the school, Gwen, who walked out of the laboratory, suddenly found Dr. Connor's experiment that wasn't far away was actually flickering with light. Could it be Dr. Connor's coming? I shook his head. I think it should be Peter. Dr. Connors is no longer human. He can now see without any lights. Besides, the last place Dr. Connors disappeared to was in the laboratory, so Peter should have come back for clues. Then let's go and help Peter. Gwen looked at I with inquiring eyes, waiting for him to make a decision. I nodded slightly. Okay, then let's go, Spider-Woman. Inside the Connors laboratory. With a flashlight in hand, Peter rummaged everywhere in the lab and all the research data. Suddenly, Peter found a document on a small shelf he had never seen before. What is this? I have never seen this information before. Peter held the flashlight in one hand and opened the information in the other hand. This is. According to the data, it records an ancient lizard that was found in the virgin forest. This lizard is characterized to possess an extremely fast regeneration rate. As long as the brain or heart is not damaged, any other injury can be recovered in as little as 30 minutes. And this lizard also has characteristics that distinguish it from other lizards. With a strong sense of ethnicity, this lizard lives in the virgin forest as a group. Once there is only one left in the population, they will meet and try to produce offspring. Or find new species. Because they will feel safe in this way. Attached is a photo of this evergreen lizard. Peter recognized at a glance that this lizard was the lizard that Connors used to extract regeneration genes. After reading this document, Peter suddenly thought of something. Picking up the box in his hand, he immediately ran to the corridor between the laboratory and the door. There are reptiles kept there for research. Peter looked around and found that the glass box in which the ancient lizard was stored had been destroyed. And the lizard inside was gone. At this moment, a rustling sound came from the laboratory. Peter suddenly shuddered and shouted into the laboratory, "Doctor, is that you?" No one responds. Peter wanted to say in his heart that he was not afraid at this time, but that was a lie. But when he thought of the doctor who was like a teacher to himself, Peter didn't know where his courage came from. Slowly, he walked towards the laboratory. After he entered the laboratory, he observed the surrounding environment vigilantly. The light of the flashlight in his also illuminated almost every corner of the test room. But still nothing. Am I just hearing things? Peter was a little disappointed. He thought he had found Dr. Connors. When he doubted again, does the current Dr. Connors even still remembers himself? With a flashlight in hand, Peter intends to search the laboratory again to see if he can find some useful clues. Pat. As soon as Peter stepped out, it was as if he had stepped on a puddle of water, and the soles of his feet felt a sticky feeling through his shoes. When the flashlight lit it, there was actually a pool of thick mucus under his feet. When Peter saw the slime, he had already guessed where Dr. Connors was. On the pitch-black ceiling, a pair of yellow pupils glowing with different light, staring closely at Peter upside down, on his mouth, saliva kept flowing. A slender tongue that extends and retracts in his mouth. Peter's heart was thumping quickly, and after plucking up his courage, he darted the flashlight in his hand upwards. Except for the black ceiling. Nothing at all. Just when Peter thought he could breathe a sigh of relief, a gloomy aura came from right in front of him, accompanied by a low roar. "Peter, it turns out that you took my genetic medicine." Connor's low groan instantly made Peter's hair stand up. Plus the stench in the air. For Peter at this time, it was double torture, both psychological and physical. Peter swallowed and looked forward. A huge human-shaped shadow stood in front of him. The light was too dim and he could only see a human-shaped silhouette. Peter stepped back tremblingly and grasped the box in his hand. The reagents in the box must not be taken by Dr. Connors. After knowing the racial characteristics of this lizard, Peter had guessed what Dr. Connors was going to do with the last of the reagents. Absolutely, Connors can't get this last tube of reagents. Peter kept backing away. Connors also pressed a step at a time, and finally, Peter could see Connors clearly with the illumination of the moonlight. It should be said that he's unrecognizable at all. The head has completely turned into an elongated lizard head and the whole body is covered with dark green scales. At this time, Connors has completely turned into a lizard except that he is standing on two legs like a human. "Doctor Connors." Peter's tone trembled a little. The lizard, Connors, took another step forward. "Peter, you are my good student, give it to me. You can still be my good student in the future." Peter continued to back away. This move also completely angered the lizard Connors, and a sharp claw suddenly raised. "I said give me that thing." "No. Am I going to die?" Peter didn't want to believe in his heart, would he die like this? At this moment, a very familiar voice sounded behind him. "Peter, get down." Out of absolute trust in this voice, Peter immediately overcame his fear and squatted down immediately. When Peter squatted down, Lizard Connors saw two more people approaching the door. There was also a glass jar thrown at him. Before Lizard Connors could react, the glass jar slammed into him. The jar burst in an instant. The liquid inside was splashed and instantly turned into countless white spider webs, wrapping the lizard Connors like a cocoon. I and Gwen came to Peter's side together. "Gwen, why are you here?" "We came to the school to do some errands, and then we came to see as there was light here." After I finished explaining, Gwen asked, "That was Dr. Connors?" Gwen's tone was also incredulous. Peter nodded painfully. And the spider cocoon began to shake at this time. "Let's go first, this thing won't hold him for too long." Gwen nodded and helped Peter the three to run outside together. After a while, a sharp claw stabbed out of the spider cocoon, and all the spider web was shattered with a clatter. The freed lizard Connors sniffed the air in front of him. "You can't run away, Peter. I remember your smell." Lizard Connors landed on all fours and quickly walked towards I and others. I, who escaped with Peter, frowned and stopped. With the help of spider sense, Gwen also noticed that Dr. Connors was approaching quickly behind her. "Gwen, take Peter first. Meet me at my house." I took out the key and handed it to Gwen. Seeing Gwen's concern, I immediately comforted, "Don't worry, I promise you that I will follow. Did you forget that you were not my opponent before?" Gwen also knew that if no one stopped Connors now, none of the three of them would be able to leave. Taking the key in Ai's hand, Gwen looked at him solemnly. You must come back, or I will find you even if I die. Don't worry. I would not let Gwen stop and fight Lizard Connors now. The current Gwen does not have the ability to shoot spider webs, nor is she familiar with her spider ability. It's too dangerous for her to deal with Connors, the lizard. So this time I can only do it myself. When Gwen led Peter away, I moved his wrist. Now, the hunter and prey are swapped. I stepped out, with the Emperor's belt buckled around his waist. The Emperor's armor. Combine. Armor fusion. I walked out step by step, and the armor on his body slowly materialized. When the lizard Connors caught up, he saw a golden macaw standing in front of it. Lizard Connors stopped abruptly. Who are you? The survival instinct of animals made him clearly feel that the person in front of him was very dangerous. Maybe you can call me the Emperor. Lizard Connor's tongue halted. He doesn't know what to think of this. But now it doesn't matter what you think. Because I had already made his move. He was so fast that Dr. Lizard couldn't even react. I had already arrived in front of Lizard Connors. Although the Emperor's armor looks a little short in front of the huge Dr. Lizard. But the power of the Emperor's armor is not small at all. I punched Lizard Connors in the abdomen, and the powerful impact instantly pierced its stomach. Bang! Lizard Connors flew out instantly and smashed into the rockery behind him. The whole rockery was also torn apart by the aftershock, and the smoke and dust filled the air. I groaned and ran to the position of the rockery. There was also the figure of Lizard Connors. I looked around and realized that there was actually a sewer. And the manhole cover has been opened. Apparently, the Lizard Connors had escaped into the sewer. You really run fast. I didn't want to go into the sewers to chase it, not to mention the intricate sewers in New York City. And the smell. It made me sick just thinking about it. The sound of fighting here immediately attracted the attention of the school security, and many security guards ran towards this side with flashlights. When they came here, except for the messy rockery, no one else was there. They called the monitoring and found that the monitoring was also broken. 13 blocks. Gwen took Peter out of the taxi and looked anxiously in the direction behind her. She found that I hadn't followed. No, Peter. You go back first, and I'll find I. Gwen is still worried about I. I'll go with you. Peter was worried about Gwen. When Gwen was about to say that he could, I's voice sounded in the alley behind her. Why are you so worried about me? Seeing I appear, Gwen immediately hugged him. You scared me. You mean, Dr. Connors wants to get this last tube of reagents to create more monsters like him. At I's house, after listening to Peter's description, Gwen wondered if she had heard it wrong. I on the side remained silent because he knew that this was indeed what Dr. Connors thought. That's right, Dr. Connors not only turned into a lizard, but even his thoughts were assimilated by the racial characteristics of the ancient lizards. So this tube of reagents cannot be obtained by Dr. Connors in any way. Gwen was still a little unconvinced. There is only one tube of reagent, no matter what he does, he can only create another lizardman. And you're talking about an ethnic group. What is the concept of ethnicity? Hundreds or even tens of thousands. As Peter spoke, he took out a document from his arms. It may not be possible for others, but it is possible with Dr. Connors. A long time ago, he was a frontline military doctor. To reduce the pain of frontline soldiers due to the side effects of drugs after injury, Dr. Connors invented the machine that nebulizes medicine. The drug atomized by the machine can not only treat injuries more effectively, but also greatly reduce the dosage. Peter spread out the information in his hand, and it recorded this great invention of Dr. Connors. However, due to the technical interception of America's military, this technology can only be used in frontline warfare and has not been extended to civilian use. Therefore, very few people know about this great scientific research achievement by Connors. I knew the reason for all of this. Once the technology is popularized, the use of drugs will be greatly reduced. The medicine that used to save one person in the past has turned into a medicine that can save 10 or 100 people. What kind of money does the large group of financial families above make? Who do you stop without intercepting? Gwen took the document from Peter's hand. It was exactly what Peter said. In this way, with the assistance of atomization technology, this tube of reagent can indeed mutate into a group of lizardmen. With the current ability of Dr. Connors, is there any way to manufacture new genetic reagents? I asked. Peter shook his head. The gene fragment location extraction technology used in the manufacturing of reagents comes from Osborne Industries. Because Osborne Industries and schools no longer intend to provide us with experimental support, the technology has been recycled. Before he recovered, the doctor and I raced against time to produce the last 3 reagents. I continued, so you mean that the one you have is the last one in the world? Peter just nodded. In this case, all problems are much simpler. As soon as I said his words, Gwen and Peter looked at him. Since Dr. Connors wants this reagent, then prevent him from creating a group. Then we just need to destroy him. The question is how to deal with Connors. And destroy it in front of Connors so he doesn't hurt you and ensure your safety. I's solution came up. Before Gwen could express her opinion, Peter on the side immediately shook his head frantically. No, this is the doctor's last effort, so I must protect it. Once it's destroyed, the doctor really has no other options anymore. Seeing Peter's reaction, I frowned, but didn't say much. He already told Peter his solution, but since he was unwilling, then what happened next had nothing to do with I. If it wasn't for Gwen's sake, I didn't want to have too much interaction with Peter and get too close to people whose hearts of the Virgin were too inundated. You will end up hurting yourself. Gwen on the side also understood that what I proposed was the most feasible solution at present. But she didn't expect Peter's reaction to be quite substantial. Peter, I also think. Peter saw that Gwen, a former good friend of his, was now helping a man he knew not long ago. Suddenly, jealousy erupted. Gwen, even you. With that, Peter picked up the box and stood up. Thanks for tonight, but I'll find a solution on my own. Gwen, Mr. I. No need to send me back. I thought to himself, I didn't say I will send you. Only Gwen, caught in a dilemma, didn't know for a while that she wanted to accompany I. Let's go send Peter. I also saw her entanglement and nodded to Gwen. Gwen smiled happily and said, I'll be back. Downstairs. Gwen catches up with Peter and intends to persuade him to consider I's approach. But Peter spoke first. Gwen, I know you want to persuade me, but you don't have to. This is the hard work of Dr. Connors and me, and I will protect it no matter what. He left after saying those words, leaving Gwen, who didn't know whether to go forward or not. At this time, I also came downstairs and patted Gwen on the shoulder. She lay in I's arms a little aggrieved. I think I'm an incompetent friend. I hugged Gwen and comforted her softly. Silly girl, you did nothing wrong. A true friend is not just to blindly support, but also pulls him back when he does something wrong. Okay, it's very late. If I don't take you home, Officer George will probably ask me to talk to him. When Gwen, who was originally sad, heard what he said, she couldn't help but be amused by I's words. My dad wasn't that scary. In Gwen's door. The old father, George, was already waiting at the door, so Gwen got out of the car and went home. It made I look sad. The degree of George's conservativeness does not look like a person from America at all. When Gwen came home, her mother rushed up and hugged Gwen at once. Thank God, you are all right, child. It made Gwen look with question marks above her head. Mom, what's wrong with you? How can something happen to me when I'm fine? George next to her immediately explained, tonight, the bureau received a call that something strange happened in your school. I took a look and it's just a rockery. As soon as I came back and talked to your mother, she kept worrying about whether something has happened to you. I called you but your phone's turned off. After Gwen heard this, her heart warmed. Mom, it's all right. I just went to a friend's house, and we happened to be doing the same project. George on the side was thoughtful. Friend. Male or female? I'll take the time to find out. I can't let my daughter be deceived outside. Inside New York City sewers. Lizard Connors was lying on his stomach, tossing and flipping his head back and forth. Under the shadow of the dim moonlight. One of his paws can be seen holding a tattooed arm. Blood was dripping from its amputated part. The top floor of a commercial building in New York City. The entire floor here has been turned into an office. In front of a desk over 2 meters long, Kingpin gritted his teeth resentfully. The computer in front of him is full of stock news about Stark Industries. Tony Stark is an idiot. Does he know how much money he lost? How much money he... Bang! Kingpin smashed the innocent wooden desk with a punch, and the terrifying force directly smashed it through like paper. After venting for a while, Kingpin picked up the phone on the desk. Sell all the stocks of Stark Industries. Remember? All of it. I don't care what method you use, just sell it all. Also, bring me another desk. Kingpin looked at the TV, and all the media were repeating the part where Tony gave up the military industry. Immediately, he sneered, "Heh. It seems really crazy, but this is also my chance." Ding. The sound of the elevator suddenly came, and one of the Kingpin's men walked out of the elevator with a stack of documents. Coming closer to Kingpin, he said, "Boss, you want another part of the information about the 13th block? Have you found anything recently?" Kingpin asked. The little henchman shook his head. "No, the 13th block has not changed much." With a flat face, Kingpin said, "Let the people in that area pay more attention, and report it immediately if there is any abnormality." "Understood, boss." "Boss, there is one more thing I want to tell you." Kingpin raised his eyebrows and seemed a little impatient, but still said, "Tell me." "Lately, 1 or 2 of our brothers are always missing. Do you want to check? Does the missing person matter?" The man was stunned. "Not really, it's just a few ponies on the periphery." "Then it doesn't matter, it's just a few lives, let's go." "Yes, boss." "Nick Fury, you really know how to find something for me." As Kingpin whispered, there were a handful of personal phones in his arms. Very few people knew this number. Usually, it doesn't ring, but it's now ringing at this time. Kingpin picked up the phone and looked, a sneer raised in the corner of his mouth. He answered the phone and said, "Obadiah, aren't you taking good care of your master, Tony? Why did you call me?" On the other end of the phone is Stark Industries interim CEO, Obadiah Stane. Obadiah held a cigar in his mouth. "Of course, I'll work with you again." "Oh. Do you want to kill Tony again? Isn't he the son of your best friend, Howard? Why do you want to kill him so much?" Kingpin asked with a smile. Obadiah on the other end of the phone was silent for a while and then said, "If he is not dead, Stark Industries will never change its name." The implication is that he wants to take Stark Industries. Kingpin also scoffed at his assertion as there weren't enough goods for him to not want to get involved in this kind of infighting. He also received benefits by helping Obadiah in connecting him with the Ten Rings gang. But after being warned by Nick Fury, he doesn't want to risk being an intermediary anymore. Unless given enough credit. "Then what do you want to do next?" Obadiah said, "Don't worry, I'm not asking you to deal with Tony for me this time. But there is a batch of goods that must be sold through your black market." Hearing that it was business, King immediately became interested. After all, he was just thinking about not getting involved in the black market arms business. Now Obadiah has come to the door. But for the sake of insurance, Kingpin still asked, "Didn't Tony announce the closure of the Stark factory? What he said in the Stark Industries doesn't count." Kingpin smiled with satisfaction. The cooperation between the two was achieved in an instant. Then Obadiah also reminded, "Don't sell the stock in your hand. When I finish dealing with Tony, you'll make a fortune. Believe me. When Tony dies, you will be the first partner of our Stark Industries." Kingpin's face froze. Hasn't he told his accountant to throw all of those stocks away? Now the stock of Stark Industries is like the plague of the stock market. No one dares to play with it. It should be sold out soon. "Okay, got it. I'll trust you again." Hanging up the phone, he didn't wait for the money and directly called the accountant to stop selling Stark Industries stocks. The phone on the desk suddenly rang, and as soon as Kingpin picked it up, he heard an extremely excited voice over there. "Boss, all the stocks of Stark Industries we have on hand have been thrown away." Kingpin's face immediately became livid as he stood up from the table. "What did you say? Stark Industries stock price is falling all the way, why are you buying so much?" State University. Gwen was beside I, watching him keep buying Stark Industries stock. With a doubtful face. Who does not know that in America, Stark Industries is going to be a withered tree soon? I gave a reason that made Gwen laugh and cry, because it's cheap. If it rises up in the future, won't I make a fortune? For a time, Gwen wondered whether I knew how to buy stocks. But looking at I's confident smile, Gwen also felt that maybe Stark Industries stock would really go up again. "Okay, let's just leave the rest to the Red Queen to get it done." This morning, Gwen has also seen the artificial intelligence, Red Queen. "I think what I ordered yesterday should be almost here." I took a look at the time and walked out of the school with Gwen. Not long after the two left the school, several police cars entered the campus with their sirens on, heading straight for Dr. Connor's laboratory. Led by George, 4 or 5 police officers in uniforms walked into Connor's laboratory. "Did a riot happen here or something?" One of the police officers saw the mess at the scene and wondered if there were dozens of people involved in an armed conflict. "Who called the police?" George asked. At this time, a school official walked out and said to George, "Today is the deadline for Dr. Connor's experimental research. So I've come to see him. When I came, I found that this place has become like this." Under the introduction of official personnel, George also knew who Connors was and what he was doing here. Just when George asked about the case, a police officer exclaimed, "Chief, look here." "What is this?" The things in front of him completely exceeded George's comprehension. Empire State University. In Dr. Connor's laboratory, several biological experts hurriedly rushed inside. As they arrived, they were immediately astounded by what they saw in front of them. In the corner of the room, there seems to be a huge transparent lizard skin. After a brief discussion with the several experts, Sheriff George was finally given an affirmative answer. "Mr. Stacy, this is indeed the remains of a reptile, but we have never seen such a huge one before. On Earth, the largest shed skin was from a reptile, Komodo dragon." George looked at the huge reptile skin in front of him. If it was really like what the biologists said, if this thing is real, it means that there is an animal larger than a person nearby. No, it should be a monster. It seems very likely that Dr. Connor's research created such a monster. Maybe the laboratory was destroyed by this same monster. With the old man's experience in solving cases, George only roughly figured out the incident through the existing clues. Why did it leave a slough? Although he is a sheriff, when it comes to professional knowledge, George still humbly asked the professionals present. "Mr. Stacy, there are generally two situations for this to happen. One is that this reptile is still growing, so the shedding of its size has peeled. The second is that it was seriously injured and took off its remains during the regeneration process. It's really hard for us to make a judgment if we only have this molted epidermis in front of us," the expert said with some embarrassment. After listening, George immediately ordered to his subordinates, "Block the scene and conduct a carpet search of the surroundings. Be sure to find this monster. And don't cause panic among the citizens." Under George's arrangement, everyone was in full swing. On the school's side, "I hope to cooperate with our actions and block the news." "Of course, we'll cooperate with you." I and Gwen, who returned home, naturally didn't know what was going on at the school. Even if they knew, they wouldn't tell George anything. Because of this, it has gone beyond the scope of the New York Police Department's handling. "Put it on quickly and try to see if it fits." I took out 2 wrist web shooters from the package and handed them to her. Gwen couldn't wait to put it on her wrists, and then installed the prepared spider fluids. Puff! Gwen pressed her palms with 2 fingers, and a thick spider web shot out from her wrists, directly sticking to the wall. It's so cool. Try to grab that thing." I pointed to the barbell on the ground. Gwen immediately shot a web of spider silk, sticking it to the barbell and pulled it lightly, and the barbell flew over. Gwen, who successfully caught the barbell, grew her mouth, which forming an O. She was really excited. She even felt a little incoherent. "Wow, do you know? This feeling is really wonderful. It's as if my arm was stretched out indefinitely." Gwen tried her best to describe how she felt. But the sensation she felt at this moment can no longer be described in words. I naturally understood that feeling. The first time he flew into the sky wearing the Emperor's armor was similar to how Gwen was feeling right now. "Let's go, put on your spider costume and go to the rooftop. To the rooftop? Gwen didn't understand. Have you ever thought about drifting through the city using the spider web? Gwen's eyes suddenly gleamed. On the rooftop. Gwen put on her white spider suit and stood at the edge of the rooftop with eyes encouragement. Are you ready, Gwen? Yeah, I am. I'm ready. Although Gwen said this, she could not hide the tension she was feeling right now. Seeing her like this, I couldn't help but smile. Unexpectedly, all the skills of Spider-Man were not developed by her, but slowly being taught by him. But it also made I happy. Okay, Gwen, put on your mask. Gwen took a deep breath and put on a white mask. Looking at the tall buildings below, her heartbeat quickened. I believe in I, he says I can do it. Taking another deep breath, Gwen started to run slowly on the edge of the rooftop according to what I taught her. Then slowly increased her speed until she reached the edge. Gwen jumped sharply and fired a thread of spider web at the opposite tall building at the same time. The next moment, Gwen flew to the opposite tall building under the direction of the spider web. When she was about to hit the tall building, Gwen let go of the silk thread in her hand. And because of the inertia, she was thrown on the exterior wall of the building. Everything was so fast that Gwen, with rolling emotions, couldn't react, and watched with static electricity coursing through her body and struck on an exterior glass wall. Good thing that the glass was sturdy enough, since if it broke, she'd be helpless. Through the glass, Gwen saw her reflection clearly. The suit covered her whole body. And with it, a feeling of indescribable excitement much stronger than before rose from the bottom of her heart. Gwen started running along the glass wall in an unladylike manner and shouted, I really like this feeling. Have you seen it? I almost feel like I'm flying. After the earlier experience, Gwen now had a preliminary understanding of how to use the web shooters. And with that, Gwen shot another web on a nearby building. She shook the spider thread in her hands and shuttled between the cities. Seeing Gwen's happy appearance, I couldn't help but laugh. At this moment, Gwen, the little white spider, was completely born. On this day, countless people in New York saw a white figure swaying through the steel jungle lined with high-rise buildings. Many people took out their mobile phones to take pictures of this scene, and then posted them on Facebook and other social media apps. Some say it's a white angel, some say it's an alien invasion, and some say it's an evil mutant. Only I knew that it was Gwen. From now on, she will be the New Yorkers' friendly neighborhood Spider-Woman, Gwen Stacy. Tony's R&D lab. Tony, who somersaulted just after the flight experiment, was clutching an ice pack. But suddenly, Jarvis' voice sounded, Sir, please take a look at this. Jarvis then projected an image of Gwen shuttling through New York City using her new web slingers. What is this? Asked Tony. It seems to be a human who covers her face and uses a substance similar to spider silk to achieve the effect of floating, replied Jarvis. Being a qualified butler of Tony Stark, Jarvis, the super-intelligent AI, directly magnified all the highlights of the video for Tony to see. The same thing happened on the S.H.I.E.L.D. mothership. Nick Fury, who was sitting in his beloved director's chair, watched the scene in New York City in front of him. Turning to look at Agent Hill. Aren't these mutants going to hide themselves now? Nick complained. Director, I don't think this is someone from X Academy, there is no information about her in S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury's eyes lit up. Could it be that this is a mutant who has just awakened and has no previous convictions? Then let's send someone to investigate to figure out her identity and directly recruit her. Avengers Alternative +1. At Peter's house. 2 detectives knocked on the door. In a little while, Aunt May came to open the door, and when she saw 2 police detectives in uniform, she couldn't help but frown. "Excuse me, how can I help you two?" "Don't be too nervous, m. We're here to see Peter Parker." "Is he home?" "Peter?" She suddenly felt nervous. "Did Peter cause trouble outside?" "You too, Peter is my nephew." "Did he do anything bad?" "You have to believe that he is a good boy, someone must have coerced him." Before Aunt May could finish speaking, another police detective immediately stopped her. "Hey, don't be nervous. We came for Peter Parker just to ask a little about his mentor, Dr. Connors." Aunt May breathed a sigh of relief. "So that's the case. You wait, I'll tell him to come down." Peter Tilda. After settling them, Aunt May called upstairs a few times. "Coming, Aunt May." Peter ran downstairs with a haggard face. "Son, what's wrong? Did something happen?" Aunt May said with some distress, "If something happens, you must tell me." "Don't worry, Aunt May. I'm fine." With that said, Peter looked towards the door. The 2 detectives also came over and said, "Mr. Parker, please come back to the police station with us to assist in the investigation." Peter knew right away that today was the deadline. It seems that someone has discovered what happened in the school laboratory and called the police. "Okay, I'll go with you." Then he said to Aunt May, "It's okay, Aunt May. I'll be back in the evening. Wait for me to come back for dinner." Inside the New York City Police Department, George sat in front of Peter. At the table between the 2 of them, there are pictures of the scene of Dr. Connors, including the huge remains. "That's why Dr. Connors has put you on vacation since that day when the research experiment was successful. You haven't seen him until now." During this period of time, Peter had already thought about what to say after being found by the police. In short, he cannot expose Dr. Connors' real situation. George relaxed, then picked up a photo on the table. "Then do you know what this is about? Or, have you seen it?" "The content in the photo is that huge sloughed skin." Peter shook his head. "It looks like the shedding of the animals we studied. But it's huge. I think it should be some kind of movie prop," Peter said, looking a little bewildered. After asking a few more innocuous questions, George stood up and shook hands with Peter. "Thank you for your help, Mr. Parker." "You're welcome, it should be. Dr. Connors is also my mentor, and I'm very saddened by his accident." After the 2 of them chatted, Peter walked out of the NYPD. In the interrogation room, George looked at these photos of the laboratory and seemed to want to find some more clues. At this moment, a police detective opened the door and said, "I think you should look at this." George frowned. He didn't like the feeling of being interrupted. He asked, "Have you found the clue to Dr. Connors?" "No, but there seems to be a new super cop in New York City," the detective added, handing him the tablet. "What?" George took the tablet in his hand, played it and watched. The video was shot from the perspective of a passerby. Several robbers who had just robbed the convenience store were running away, when suddenly, a woman in white costume jumped down from the sky. Yes, it was all captured in the camera. The robber with a gun in the video was apprehended in just a moment, and then tied to the telephone pole with a thick white wire. The 3 pistols were also broken by the woman in white. She waved towards the audience and then left. The video was filled with cheers from passers-by. Then as soon as the camera turned, the passerby who shot the video rushed up and stroked the white silk threads. "My God, is this spider silk? Did you see it? Did you see it? It was really cool just now, that girl is so cool. Look, she broke these guns with her bare hands." Although the video is not over, George has already finished watching. Angrily, he snapped the tablet on his hand and clasped it on the table. The detective who sent the video ached when he saw what happened to the tablet. This was his personal tablet, and he brought it to the police station to pass the time. "But don't break it. Another gal who likes to play a hero. I really don't know whose parents gave birth to such a daughter. They don't know how to properly discipline their child." Just as he was mumbling, someone came into the interrogation room. And there were a lot of people this time. When George saw them, they instantly looked familiar to him. "Aren't these the 3 stars in the video just now?" One of them said proudly, "If it weren't for that spider girl, you stupid detectives wouldn't be able to catch us." The detective who escorted them in also noticed that the director's face was getting worse by every word. He could only give these 3 foolish robbers a sympathetic look. Then he quietly left the interrogation room. On the rooftop, Gwen, who had wandered around New York for a long time, swayed back from another direction. As soon as she got back to the rooftop, she rushed towards I as quickly as possible, and then jumped straight up. She hugged I like an octopus. "How are you? Are you happy?" I asked with a smile. Gwen took off her hood, her face beaming with excitement. "I love it so much. And you know what? I came across a robbery on my way back and I caught 3 robbers. I tied them to a telephone pole with spider webs and broke their pistols." Gwen gestured with her hands as she spoke, trying to make I feel the indescribable happiness she felt at this moment. I just listened to Gwen's story quietly. After Gwen finished speaking, she put her arms around I's neck and softly said, "I am really, so happy. Today is the happiest day of my life. Thank you, I." I smiled and said, "This is all your own ability, thank me for what? Without your support and encouragement, I don't think I would have taken this step in my life. So, thanks," Gwen said affectionately. Just as he was about to say no thanks, Gwen grabbed his collar, pulling it down. The two's lips touched together. I also proceeded to hug her after he recovered from his daze. "Gwen, let's go home. I'll give you another present." I hugged Gwen and whispered. Gwen nodded gently, showing a hint of blush on her cheeks. As they went downstairs, I turned his head and asked, "Gwen, is this your first kiss?" Gwen's body tightened in an instant, and her face became red. She gave a bewildered tilde as she nodded. Seeing Gwen's cute reaction, I smiled and said, "What a coincidence." "Me too." Back at home, I opened the package and pulled out a tiny black box. When opened, it revealed compact, black custom-made earbuds that can snugly fit in the ears. Just that these headphones appear to be for the left ear. "Is this for me to listen to music?" Gwen queried. She also enjoys listening to music, which the hood of her spider costume is designed to facilitate. "Of course not, but it may also be used to listen to music. Try it on. Simply put one on, and the other is mine." Gwen realized what was going on and put on one of the headphones. I stated after putting it on. "Say, hello, Red Queen." "Hello, Queen Red," Gwen replied softly. "Hello, Miss Gwen." Let me introduce you to the headphone feature that the master designed for you, the Red Queen said quickly. The headset has a built-in chip that I configured and can connect directly to my main network, allowing you to chat with me at any moment. Also, I hacked police communications throughout New York to efficiently assist Miss Gwen in fighting crime in New York City. This includes monitoring, as well as other devices. As long as there is a crime in the area, you can find out about it as quickly as possible and rush to assist in most ways. After listening to the functions introduced by Red Queen, Gwen cheerfully responded, "Thank you, Queen Red. You're welcome, feel free to contact me anytime." After she spoke, the Red Queen's voice was drowned out. Gwen then turned her attention to AI. She had been with AI at all times during this period. But Gwen, on the other hand, has no idea when he made all these arrangements. And how did he get rid of Connors the lizard the last time? She felt that AI was full of mystery. But she restrained herself from asking more, since she was confident that AI would tell her if he chose to. As he turned and looked at Gwen's dazed face, AI smiled and asked, "What's wrong, Miss Spider-Woman? Are you not satisfied with my gift?" "No, I'm delighted." "Wait, Miss Spider-Woman. What do you mean? It looks like you don't know," AI said as he took up the nearby computer and started playing a video. The content of the video was Gwen quickly solving the three robbers. Gwen is referred to below as Spider-Woman in the comments. In parallel to this, some people compared Daredevil and Spider-Woman below, which leads to polarization. For some time, AI became speechless. Sure enough, opposing themes can always make online users cry, regardless of the context. Spider-Woman. Well, I like this title. Likewise, AI nodded in agreement as he continued, "I received news just now that the police have discovered Dr. Connors' laboratory. And in the lab, they also found this." On AI's computer, a picture of the shed skin appeared. "My God, is this Dr. Connors' slough?" "Yes, after chasing us one night, he returned to the laboratory and shed it." After seeing this picture, AI learned that the lizard, Dr. Connors, was seriously injured from their fight that night. He may have thought that AI was chasing him, so he escaped back to the laboratory. After all, the most dangerous place is the safest place. Looking at the pictures on the computer, Gwen slowly said, I think." But halfway through her speech, she paused. AI knew what Gwen wanted to do, so he assured her, "Do whatever you want, don't worry. And I think Uncle George is also investigating Dr. Connors. We must find Dr. Connors before the police to avoid a confrontation between Uncle George and Dr. Connors." Remembering that Captain Stacy would be pierced by the lizard, Connors' claw and died. AI vowed to prevent this from ever happening. Because Gwen would be heartbroken if this would really happen to her father. Gwen understands that with the prowess the lizard, Connors possessed, the NYPD wouldn't be able to handle it. "Then what should we do next?" Gwen asked. AI pointed to Gwen's ear and explained, "The Red Queen will help you keep an eye on Dr. Connors' movements. Once Connors appears in New York, or if there is the latest news from the police station, she will notify you as soon as possible. The other person we need to pay more attention to is Peter." "Peter?" "Yes, after all, he has what Connors wants in him. And I think sooner or later, Connors would find him." Listening to AI's analysis, Gwen looked like she didn't know what to do next. "But for now, we have more important things to do, Gwen." Gwen didn't understand what AI meant, so she asked, "More important things? But then she noticed II approaching her slowly with unfathomable aggression in his eyes. Gwen took a couple of steps back unconsciously. But her back shortly ebbed to the wall. At this point, II was already at her front. Gwen. With his hands on the wall, he looked at Gwen with calm and bright eyes. Gwen's clear and tender face suddenly turned red. II, what's the important thing you said? II raised Gwen's chin with one hand, and his voice became very magnetic. What do you think, Miss Gwen? I don't know. Because it was too close, Gwen could even feel the heat exhaling from II's nose rushing towards her. Due to them being too close, Gwen could even feel the rushing heat II was exhaling through his nose. Feeling the breath, Gwen's ears turned red. She could even hear her heartbeat pulsing faster and faster. Thump, thump. Of course. Before he could complete his words, a familiar tone prompted in his mind, the frog cub is back. II. On the streets of New York. Peter, who had just left the police station, turned down George's offer to send him home. Because Peter has another destination in mind. And this is the place that could help him in solving his current predicament. Peter, one of Harry's friends. The kid that can comprehend my research report. You came to see me today, what's the matter? Inside Norman Osborn's office at Osborn Industries. Looking at Peter sitting opposite him, Norman tapped his legs, gesturing for his son who's also inside the office to give them some time alone. Harry, who thought Peter's visit was just to discuss scientific research with his father, left after being hinted to get lost. After Harry left the room, Peter spoke about his intention for the impromptu meeting. Mr. Osborn, I want to borrow some equipment from Osborn Industries from you. I want to build a small laboratory. Peter's abrupt words made Norman frown. Peter, I don't know why you asked this, but the only people who are allowed to build their own laboratory are the ones whose projects are approved by the industry. Is the research environment of your school not enough for you to do your research? In his opinion, Peter, who understands his academic research, has a brilliant mind. But no matter how smart he is, just how bright can a college student be? Well, except for Tony Stark. Look at this first. Peter took a notebook out of his pocket and opened one of the pages with dense formulas written on it and handed it to Osborn, who indifferently took it. At first, he just dismissively looked, but then his eyes gradually became sharper. Then his sitting position changed. From his arrogantly cross-legged to a more upright position, he held the notebook in his hand like it's a valuable treasure. As an authoritative expert in life genetic science, he knows what the formula written in the notebook represents. You wrote this? Norman asked in amazement. Not all. My mentor discovered part of it, and I deduced it based on his work. And pushed it further. Peter replied. Who is your mentor? Kurt Connors. Norman recalled for a moment and asked, the Connors at State University who studies regeneration technology. Peter nodded. Then why did he only let you come today? Trust me, with what you've written here, I can get you to build your own team. Norman said with admiration. Only he could see the value in Peter's notebook. Looking at Peter, who fell silent, Norman keenly noticed that something must have happened. Did something happen to Dr. Connors? That's why you came here alone. At this time, Norman even changed the way he addressed Dr. Connors. Peter thought about it repeatedly and realized that if he wanted to do experiments with Osborn Industries, he first had to confess to Mr. Osborn. He told everything to Norman, who patiently listened to Peter's summary, including his divestment of Osborne Industries. Scientific experiments are inherently risky, especially genetic experiments. As a pioneer on this path, I greatly admired Dr. Connors. Peter, trust me. I would never have withdrawn if I knew your research was so mature. The group of people on the board are really horrible. Norman gritted his teeth and continued, Peter, I can provide you with a laboratory and give you all the equipment and tools you want. But only if you agree to my request. Peter nodded and motioned for Norman to continue. I want to share all the experimental data on your research because my recent research also needs your data as support. Peter didn't mind, so he agreed, of course, Mr. Osborne. The two shook hands and reached a cooperation. You're Harry's friend, you can just call me Uncle. At this moment on, Norman saw Peter in a more pleasant light. I also hope your serum can be successfully researched and turn Dr. Connors back. I believe that I have a lot of topics to talk about while sitting with you. I believe yes. Yes, Peter wanted to develop an antigene serum with technical support from Osborne Industries. To turn Dr. Connors back into a human. This was also the only way he thought of saving Dr. Connors. Besides, this is the only way. RAI's house. At this time, Gwen was alone on the treadmill. Although she was running, the expression on her face showed that she had a temper. With RAI's earlier aggressive approach, she thought he took the initiative to kiss her. But she didn't expect that at the last moment, RAI actually said, "Eating time, Tilda. Then go to the kitchen to cook." All her expectations at that moment went down the drain. This terrible guy, and the culprit of her indignation, was busy cooking in the kitchen, who also mirrored her sentiments, could only complain in his heart. It's only a short while away. Frog Cub didn't die, and came back. I opened the game while cooking. After closing all the tips, the Frog Cub also brought back souvenirs from this trip. Design drawing of T-Series robot, a souvenir from the world of Terminator, which records the design of the Terminator T-Series robot. Remarks, it can be used for postgraduate study, combining with existing technology to master robotics technology. This is a good thing. Does this mean that I can create my own robot army in the future? I became excited just thinking about it. You know, if it is really designed, then this group of robots will obey him under the control of the Red Queen. The Red Queen's setting is that she will never betray and never be invaded. It means that those robots will also be completely loyal to him. So there will be no such accident in the Terminator story, where Skynet turns against humanity. I collected the souvenirs first, and then bought some supplies for the Frog Cub for the next trip. I collected the souvenirs and bought some supplies for the Frog Cub for his next adventure. Because of his current fortune, he couldn't upgrade the Frog Cub's strength for the meantime. In the game, the Frog Cub continued to write his diary on the table. This also made I a little curious. Can Frog Cubs write? What's in his diary? System, can I enter the in-game world? Of course, Master. Oh. Then what should I do? I asked curiously. When the frog travels around the world, he will make some friends, and when these friends come to visit at home, the host can enter the game as the host to receive guests from other worlds. It turns out that there are restrictions on entering. So far, the Frog Cub has been to 3 worlds, and I don't know when his friends will visit. Of course, I wasn't too worried about this either. Soon, the meal was ready, and I greeted Gwen, who was still running over to eat. He saw Gwen walk by with a sour look on her face. That's pretty cute. I knew that she was still a little angry about being molested just now. But I was also helpless. Who made the frog cub come back? This stupid guy really can't pick the time when he comes back. I could only tease Gwen while they ate. In the end, under his soothing coupled with delicious food, Gwen completely forgot what happened just recently. Night soon came just after they finished eating. Connors should appear at night, I want to search for him. I nodded, before you patrol, let's get you home first. When you're at home, turn on your computer. I'll let the Red Queen hack into it. Then go back to your room and lock the door, and come out the window. So that if Uncle George gets suspicious, the Red Queen could create an illusion to act as your stand-in at home when you're out. You are a genius. Gwen did not expect that there would be such a good way. In this case, it doesn't matter if she can go back out late in the future. With her spider abilities, she can just open the window and go home. Gwen was about to give a big hug, and when she shared her joy, she remembered how bullied her. With her joyful mood, Gwen was about to hug but when she remembered how he teased her, she immediately stopped, and instead put her hands around her chest. HMPH. Who wanted to open his arms, was taken. Woman. Oh no. Girls surely have vengeful sides. Then I'll head home first and turn on the computer in the room. As soon as Gwen took off her clothes, the spider suit was directly revealed. Then she jumped from Ai's balcony and took off, slinging the spider web towards her home. On the way, she also took care of several petty criminals she encountered. And the name of Spider-Woman gradually spread. On the balcony, I was lying on a chaise lounge and drinking tea as he listened to Red Queen's reports of Gwen's heroism. Well, I must change house when Tony announces himself as Iron Man. And by the way, replace the whole house with high-tech. Because the ability of the Red Queen can't be fully displayed with his current house. In this situation, if it was Tony's house, Jarvis would already project a screen. Instead of just looking at the small computer screen like I right now. How far has Tony developed his Mark armor right now? I wondered. Has Obadiah found Mark 1 yet? Thinking of the Mark 1 Tony designed which deviated from the original, I sighed. Won't it be more like the Emperor's armor instead of the Iron Man? Meanwhile, inside Tony's lab. At this time, Tony was covered with a set of all-metal silver armor. The eye area of the armor's head is made into a very exaggerated style. Many radical modifications have been made in otherwise originally sleek areas of the armor. If I was here, it would feel a bit like the Emperor's armor. But not very identical. Okay, Yinsen, Jarvis. Mark II's first test flight. Are you ready? Yinsen gave Tony an okay gesture. Jarvis's voice sounded inside the helmet, ready, sir. All parameters and flight paths have been designed. Okay, let's get started. The palms and soles of the Mark II armor spurted out flames and slowly lifted Tony up. After it stabilized, Tony swooped out of the underground laboratory. Wow! Ha ha ha! We made it, Jarvis, Yinsen. In the laboratory, Yinsen also witnessed the process of Tony's flight. Tony in the armor smiled like a child who just got a new toy. And like a shooting star, he streaks across the night sky of New York City. But unlike shooting stars that fell to the sky, Tony flew up in a straight line. Okay, let's see how capable this equipment is. What's the record for the SR-71 Blackbird? The record for fixed-wing flight is 85,000 feet, sir. Oh. Well, records are meant to be broken. Come on. Tony went full throttle and flew towards the top record. Now he behaved like a competitive child more than a scientist. In SHIELD. Nick Fury watched the Mark II as it kept flying into the sky. The appearance of the armor made Nick Fury even more suspicious that Tony had something to do with the mysterious mecha. Nick Fury has been paying attention to Tony since Tony came back. As soon as the Mark II flew out of Tony's house, someone came to report it. Howard, he really deserves to be your son. He actually researched this kind of thing. Nick Fury looked at Tony as he kept flying higher. His eyes were full of admiration. Yes, that's what it is. Avengers members +1 again. But the next scene changed Nick Fury's face. Because Tony continues to rise at great speed without stopping. The temperature rapidly changed. The higher he goes, the lower the temperature. At this rate, he'll be covered in frost in no time. And sure enough, a layer of frost began to form on the surface of the mecha. This guy can't be a lunatic. Nick Fury felt that his assessment of Tony just now seemed a little premature. And Tony still continues to rise. Sir, the exterior may have been severely frozen and damaged. Keep flying. Tony didn't stop. Soon, as the surface freezes, the operation of the interior gradually ceases. Even Jarvis was silent. The Mark II completely stopped responding and began to fall from a high altitude. What? Ah. We're frozen, Jarvis, deploy the ailerons. Tony gravely said. Come on, we have to get the ice off. Jarvis didn't respond, and Tony could only find the manual switch and pressed it. The moment the ailerons opened, the speed of descent was greatly delayed. Jarvis was also able to start again, and at the last minute, he flew close to the ground. Tony, who escaped from death again, laughed in his armor, ha ha ha. Nick Fury in SHIELD could not help but wipe a cold sweat for Tony. Hill asked, would you like to add Tony to the plan? Nick Fury said cautiously, let's observe for now. I stood on the balcony as he gazed at the Mark II, which was soaring into the sky not far away. That's it guys, hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel and also tell me in the comment section below. That's it guys. Hope you like the video. If you like the video then please like, share and subscribe the channel. And also tell me your recommendation in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching.